Before we begin, the name is placed on the top right side of the screen. In the not-so-distant past, when people still believed in legends, there was a man in the empire that was called the Grim Reaper. He was said to be able to reduce a person to ashes with a single look. A monster who did not hesitate to kill for the good of the empire. A father trembles and cries for his son, as his son lays dead in his arms. The blood drips from the sword. He takes a step towards them, being called a terrible tyrant and merciless angel of death. The father calls out to him and questions why and what in God's name did they do for him to be so cruel. The empire called this monster Chiron, Archduke Chiron, Lord of Triton. The father cries in pain as he questions a rebellion. He mentions that he is aware perfectly well that they are involved in no such thing, and they have been framed. That the Archduke watched him for all these years as he served his majesty with utmost fealty. Chiron steps towards him stating that he does not know about that. He mentions that what he does know is that the emperor wants the Archduchy of Barton eliminated. The father flinches as Chiron tells him that he can stop resisting now. The man calls him nothing but the emperor's dog, stating that he is serving that savage as his master and calls him pathetic. Chiron twitches as that man tells him that he swears his sin will only lead him to hell. He takes the sword and kills him off, telling him that he warned him to stop resisting. The man coughs up as he tells him that he should have at least met his end with dignity. The room's door opens as he thinks about this room, looking at all those things, and then he wonders that the man says he's the one who would go to hell. He mentions that he does not see a man with this collection going to heaven either. He hears a noise as he wonders what is that. He steps towards that thing and pulls the cloth off as it is a girl. He is surprised as he sees a mermaid. She stares at him as right then his attendant questions if he is in there, stating that they seem to have cleared most of the castle before he asks the attendant to be quiet. His attendant also jolts realizing that is a mermaid. The attendant mentions that he heard that Archduke Barton was an avid collector of rarities, but he never imagined he captured a creature they only hear of in legends. His attendant is aware that his collection is not the problem. If one harms a mermaid, they die. So the legend goes. Perhaps the reason Archduke Barton died before Chiron makes it clear that the reason Archduke Barton died was because he was planning a rebellion, not because of some fish. The mermaid stares at him as she tries to call out to him. The attendant positions, what will they do now? He tells the attendant that they are taking everything with them and all that is in this castle now belongs to His Majesty. She tries to ask for help as she taps on the glass. The attendant questions if they're going to take the moment too. He responds that is right and asks him to look throughout the other rooms as well. The mermaid glances at him as she turns around. The Archduke tells the attendant that he said the castle was cleared out, so now it is time to before he hears a thud sound and looks towards the mermaid to see her banging herself on the glass. He smirks as he mentions that is entertaining. The attendant gasps as he questions why is it suddenly and thinks if it is trying to attack them, realizing that at this rate it will kill itself first. She continues to do that as Chiron mentions that he does not know about that. Perhaps it is asking to join its old master. He decides to take out his sword as the attendant asks him if he is going to kill it. He asks the attendant why not, as they are supposed to kill everyone in the castle. His Majesty has commanded that. The attendant asks him to wait. He hits the glass with his sword, causing it to split and break apart. The mermaid falls onto him as she grabs him. The water flows down. She leans at him as they both stare at each other for a while. She wonders that she did not notice earlier as she touches him. She beams with happiness as she looks at his eyes. This is a story from the not-so-distant past. A story of a mythical mermaid and her one and only human, her Serenhide. She stares into his eyes before he calls out to Ion. He asks him to take this mermaid and put her in some sort of tank and bring it to him then. The mermaid stares at him as he stares. No further questions until then. He steps into a dark room as he ponders. This is now the second time he has been in this room. He gets a flashback of the past as a man kneels down and mentions that the kingdom of Barton will surrender the war and become the Barton Archduchy. They will swear fealty to the Empire, asking His Majesty to have mercy on them. This Majesty calls out to Kieran, asking him to watch carefully. Back in the present, he breaks a statue and mutters that this place is unpleasant as always. Ian calls out to him and tells him they have brought the mermaid. Ian states that he is aware that His Grace ordered her to be put in a tank as she trembles. She grew legs as Kieran notices that. Ian tells him that once the water dried off she transformed. He grabs her face as he mentions so this fish can look like a human being. He states that Archduke Barton was hiding quite a valuable piece in his castle. She looks at him as she tilts her face. She trembles as her legs are filled with bruises and marks. Questions. What is this? He tells Ion that this is no way to treat a better trophy. Why did he leave these marks? Ian tells His Grace it was not done by him. They were already all over her body when he broke the tank. He suspects Archduke Barton was behind them. The legends say that mermaids should shed tears of pearls. The Archduke Barton used to whip her, questioning why won't she cry. He would hit her mercilessly in hopes she would cry, and he'd take those pearls. Kieran lifts her chin up as he leans near her face, asking her to look at him. He asks her if she can hear him. Kieran wonders if the Archduke of Barton was into this sort of thing. He brushes his fingers on her lips. He ponders that does like those eyes as he stares deep in her eyes. She mumbles something as Ian gasps and becomes guard, asking Kieran to stand back and block him. Kieran asks Ion what does he think he is doing. Ian apologizes to Kieran and states that it is said that a mermaid's voice can steal one's soul. Kieran tells him that it is enough of his legends. He has already gotten in his way once by invoking them. Ion responds that he merely believes that caution is the best before the mermaid again mumbles. The knight flinches as Kieran rises. She mutters cry as Kieran questions what with a confused look. The mermaid grabs onto him as she tells him that she's hungry. She asks him to feed her as Kieran questions Ion if he has heard that. Ion mentions that she just asked His Grace to feed her. Kieran begins to laugh loudly, causing the mermaid to look at him with a confused look. Kieran lifts her chin up as he mentions that he did not think they would find such an interesting trophy. He asks if Ian does not wonder what will happen. He rubs her eyes, completing the sentence with if they take her back to the Empire with them. In the ship, he tells the knights that they will run into headwind soon, and they shall raise the aft sails. They pulls it as Ion steps in, stating that this has been quite a long journey. Not only did they subdue the nomads terrorizing the Western Born, but they also quelled the rebellion of the Barton Archduchy. It has been nearly half a year since they have seen Triton Castle. Kieran cuts him in, telling him that if he has something to say he should spit it out. Ion flinches as he questions what. Kieran tells him to stop babbling and get to the point. He mentions that they will be passing the Sea of Berceuse soon, so what if they release the mermaid there? He mentions that His Majesty commanded them to take no prisoners at Barton Castle after all. Kieran states that technically it is not a human but a fish. He thought he might keep it as a display animal of sorts. Ion is shocked as he questions if he means to keep it like a pet. Kieran asks Ion what is she doing right now. Kieran smirks as he declares her as his. She trembles as she's sitting inside a room. He goes to her and asks Ion what is the matter with her. Ion responds that the clothes seem restricting as she keeps pulling and tearing them. Kieran notices that her color is off and reminds Ion that he told him to feed it something before they set sail. Did he not? Ion responds that they gave it some of the fish left at the castle. Kieran questions fish, as Ion tells that there were buckets full of raw fish in the room where they found the mermaid, and it looked like her food, so they tried giving some. Kieran asks raw fish. He kneels as he supposes that a mermaid would not eat soup or fried food. She looks at him as he asks her to stay still. She flinches as he presses his fingers on her lips. He opens her mouth and mumbles that is peculiar. He states that the mouth is quite warm, but the color of her face is sickly as if she was dying. She coughs as she asks for water. Ion questions what did they do. He asks should not they release it into the ocean before it is too late. She again asks for water as Kieran looks at Ion and asks him what is he waiting for, telling him that she is asking for water. Ion states that they did try giving her water in case she was thirsty, but she would not drink even when they left it in front of her. Kieran snatches the bottle of water and reminds Ion that she is a mermaid, so she has other needs outside drinking. Ion is confused before Kieran splashes the water on her. They then stare at her to see her reaction as she seems to become better. Kieran questions how is that? He questions if she feels better. She tries to thank him before he turns around and instructs Ion to call the third mate and have him keep an eye on her and call him once she is better. He steps away as she wishes for him to not go, asking him to stay as she grabs her leg. He turns to look at her trying to get to him. He tells her he does not wish to take on an animal that is so needy. He gets down on one knee as she touches his lips. He is confused as he asks what the devil she is before she tells him to not go. She loses conscious and slips as she falls on his arms. She pants as he wonders what on earth is going on. The other mermaid had told her that she must get rid of him before she fall asleep. You'll see what they mean when she meets her Serenhide. She thought about what they meant. She does not think she understands even now. She is aware that she is simply in search of her Serenhide who will forever live in her memory. If only she can meet her Serenhide and bear the prettiest little mermaid child. But then she was kidnapped. The humans were excited that they had caught a legendary mermaid. Just as she comes back to her senses, she finds herself in a bathtub, back in her mermaid form. She wonders what is this? She ponders that this is the ocean, and she has finally returned to the ocean, and she thinks she will make it until she jolts, finding Kieran standing there telling her that her tail is back. She gasps as she realizes he is that human from before. She flaps around her tail as she ponders if she can ask if he gathered this water earlier and just now for her. She then wonders what did she do, realizing that she wants to thank him, but she does not know how to do that in the human tongue. He steps towards her as he asks her if she is feeling better now. He tells her it seems that having Ian work so hard to draw water from the ocean in here was worth it. He touches her forehead. He sighs, wondering if she even understands him. He sits next to her. He thinks about what Ian said before, that if one harms a mermaid, they die. That is how the legend goes. He looks at her and thinks that she looks far too dopey to cast such a curse. She looks at herself in the water as she begins to splash it with her hands. He takes the dagger out, causing her to get stunned as she pouts. She catches it as she ponders. She caught it. He asks her what is she doing as she giggles. She begins to play with it. When he was young, he was told that mermaids are very beautiful, but he must not be fooled by their appearance as they seduce men with their singing and show them illusions, stating that would turn any man insane, just like him now. He is reminded of that as he stares at her shockingly. She takes the dagger out of the cover and brushes her finger on it. He asks her to drop it. She does not listen to him as he repeats again. She wonders the same thing before she ends up hurting herself with it. She screams before she begins to blow on her hand. She ponders that it hurts and thinks that it must be meant for inflicting pain. As he states upon their return, he is teaching her how to speak. Even a parrot would know more words. He passes by her as she thinks if he is leaving again. She wonders why is he leaving, thinking if it is because she is frustrating him because she cannot speak properly. She wishes for him to not go as she ponders that she will learn the best she can. She looks at his back as he leaves. She wishes for him to stay, but it is too late as he steps outside of the room. They reach the Empire. One of the knights asks the vice commander what is inside this carrier. He responds that he is afraid that he cannot respond to that as it is the commander's orders. He mentioned that it seems like everyone is still terrified by that. It is as if they are here to conquer them instead of returning home in victory. There's a rumor going around that if one looks His Grace in the eyes, they will burn to ashes. Ion sighs and mentions that the late emperor is to thank for that. He played a part in giving His Grace that image of the Empire's great Green Reaper. Ion glances towards the carriage before he tells Alas that it is just a little rumor and it will all be forgotten soon enough. so there is no need to worry. It also ponders that it will indeed be all right. Inside the carriage, she peeks around. A maid calls out to Anne and asks her where is she going. She responds that she had to stop by the kitchen for a moment. The maid asks why at this hour. Before she questions, it is her feeding time, right? Noticing the fishes on the bucket, they tell her that it must be hard as she has been here only a few months, yet she is given such a grueling task to do every day. She responds it is not that bad. Mentions that they have heard it all. Whenever any of the staff gets together these days, they only ever talk about her. The lover His Grace brought here, she is not unusual at all, but a mermaid. They try to ask her things, stating that they say mermaids can kill people with their singing. They even giggle and ask her if that is indeed true, that they can just die by hearing their voice. She wonders to herself if my mates were so dangerous their mere voices were enough to kill them. She knocks on the door and tells the mermaid that she is here. She put the door and ponders that she would be long dead and gone if that was the case. She apologizes to the mermaid, stating that she must have been waiting. The mermaid beams with happiness, looking at her. The maid ponders that besides, she's really nice. She tells the mermaid that her name is Anne. The money maid tries to call her name, but she tells her it is not the right way to pronounce it before she mentions never mind, it is fine. The maid tells her that she is so good at other words, so why is her name so hard for her? The mermaid only smiles. The maid states that she only ever eats raw fish while staying in the water all day long. She gives her some squid too, telling her that it looked like she was enjoying it the other day. The mermaid thanks her. The maid gasps as she mentions that as right one says thank you when they are grateful. She is so glad that she remembers. The door creaks open as the mermaid can hear someone's footsteps. The maid calls out to her as she flinches. The maid asks her if she's waiting for someone. She has no idea what waiting means. He does her that waiting, in other words, is that if there is someone she wants to see. She ponders that, come to think of it, when mermaid arrived, Ion used to come often to visit her for the first few months. The maid asks her if the mermaid is perhaps waiting for Ian. The mermaid thinks of that and ponders that his name must be Ian, though she is thinking about Kieran. The maid tells her that she's blushing. She questions what does she like so much about him. Is it his handsome features or the fact that he's a count? The mermaid nods that she likes Ian. The maid pats her and tells her he does not even come to visit her lately. So why does she like him so much? The maid asks her to turn around as she would braid her hair. The mermaid thinks about Kieran. She calls him her human, her Serenhide. She wonders it is just as her sister told her she knew it as soon as she saw him that he would be her Serenhide. That is why she can keep waiting for him no matter how long it takes, as this is nothing at all. The maid tells her that her hair is done. She asks the mermaid to wait here as she will be right back with something to put in her hair. The mermaid wonders that her sisters already taught her that she needs to wait for a long time to meet her Serenhide. The door creaks open as she looks as she calls the maid's name but sees Kieran. He asks her who is she looking for as she leans near her. He tells her that she looks ridiculous and she's still a mute. He questions why is her tail gone again. She questions about the tail as he touches her knee, telling her yes, the one that's here. She thinks about it too as she ponders. Ever since she got here, she has not been able to turn back into a mermaid, causing her to wonder why. She knows that it could be because of the water as it smells different from the ocean. She tries to tell him it is because of the water as he states that he has no idea what she is trying to say. She continues to say water and calls him Ian. He frowns as he hears Ian. Right then the maid appears and shoves Kieran away. She holds the mermaid in her arms and yells at Kieran, asking who is he and how dare he barge into a young lady's room alone. She asked him to get out of here this instant as he rises and questions if she is ordering him to leave and if she is sure that she wants to say that to him. The maid still shouts at him, questioning what kind of madman would do that. She then suddenly flinches as she realizes it is His Grace. He asks her if they came up with some new rules while he was away. He questions if he needs permission to see his own property now. She bows down and asks for forgiveness. She tells him that she has only started working here fairly recently, and she failed to notice that it was him. She mentions that she is terribly sorry. She should be telling him that she deserves to die. He takes out his sword and he acknowledges that she does her job well. He tells her that she really should know just who he serves. The mermaid jolts. The maid begins to cry as she mutters. Right then the mermaid rushes out to Kitten and grabs him, asking him to not do that. He flinches as she calls out to him again as Ian. She tries to tell him that that sword is dangerous. It is meant to hurt and she does not like it, so he should please not do that. She tries to thank him and ask him to not do it as he smirks. That one does not say thank you in this situation. They ask for a favor. She mutters favor as he lifts her chin up. He uses her arms as he tells her. Seems like she has learned a few words. And here he thought she was a mute. She has also put some meat on her bones. He grabs her as she rises up and comes close to him. He mentions that she even knows how to jump into his arms now. He tells her it is very good and calls her his little fish. He questions what should he do, since she stopped his blade. He will do as she wishes and asks her if he should kill that maid. She asked him what is killing. The maid flinches and begs him to not kill her. She wishes for him to have mercy on her as she does not want to die. Kitten asks her that she said that she deserved to die earlier, did she not? She tells him that she was wrong and asks him to please forgive her, and she will do anything if he spares her. The maid mutters spare as Kitten whispers in her ears and asks her to say spare her. He asks her to use her own words and he will spare that maid's life. Please telling her to say spare her and I beg you. The mermaid finally tells him to spare her please as he leans near her. She calls him Ian as his mood changes suddenly and he twitches. He pushes her away and mentions as she wishes. He is a man of his word. The maid rushes towards the mermaid. He tells the maid that she will teach the mermaid to speak better. He states that it cannot be that his own property does not know his name and he expects the next time he visits. The name Ian does not come out of her mouth as he shows his sword. The maid thanks him and mentions she will teach her right without fail. He leaves as the mermaid stares at him. It is already the night time as Ian states that he heard his grace went to see the maid. Kitten mentions that the word travels fast. Ian questions that the new maid was rude to him as well. He apologizes, stating that it is his fault for not better instructing the help. His grace mentions that she asked him to spare her. He repeats her words and tells him that the mermaid asked him that favor. 3 questions is not it strange. Nothing is more irritating than watching someone resort to the deepest depths of indignity to try and survive. But there was something about that fish. From the first time he saw it, it was something strange. Ian calls out to him before Kitten tells him he can go as he takes a medicine. Ian shows worry that he has been taking more of that medication lately, and he fears how it may be affecting his health. He questions a face turning into an addict not preferable to getting more sleep for days on end. He does not like to repeat himself as asks Ian to go. Ian tells him all right as he leaves. Kitten feels unwell as he thinks of the Archduke's word that he is nothing but the Emperor's dog, and when the maid asked him to spare her, as well as when the mermaid asked him to spare the maid. He states that he has had enough of this. The mermaid tries to walk, but has trouble doing so. She trembles and takes steps ahead before falling into the maid's arms. The maid assures her that she took 2 more steps than yesterday, and expresses her admiration. She tells the mermaid that now they should be able to go outside too. The mermaid mutters amazing and gets back on her feet. The maid questions if she wishes to practice more. The mermaid responds yes, and begins to walk ahead. The maid beams with adoration and ponders that she can't help but think of her little brothers and sister. She has quite a big family. She is the oldest, and she has 3 younger siblings. The mermaid asks her about the siblings as the maid states that they were poor, so both of her parents worked all day while she was left to take care of the little ones. She was the one who changed their diapers, watched them take their first step and everything. The maid expresses that they did not listen to a word she said, and at times it was really frustrating. But they are still her family, and she loves them. She tells the mermaid that if she had not been able to stop His Grace the last time, she would not have been able to see them ever again. With tears in her eyes, she thanks the mermaid for protecting her. A woman creates havoc, shouting that she only wishes to stay another day and asks what is the problem. Anne takes the mermaid to a corner and observes the situation. The other maids tell the woman that they apologize, but they have their orders. The head maid states that His Grace commanded them to send her away as soon as she woke up. Anne whispers to the mermaid that she heard that His Grace invited a woman over last night, stating that it must be her. The mermaid seems confused before Anne breaks it to her that it means he spent the night with her. The mermaid remembers that she has heard this phrase before. In the past, her sister told her that she had to spend the night with her Serenhide to bear a child. Anne mentions that she guesses the rumors are true. They say that His Grace always sends women home the morning after he invites them, with no exception. Anne realizes about her rambling and pulls the mermaid, stating that they should go somewhere else. She asks Anne to wait, but Anne does not catch on. The mermaid finds it a shame, as she wanted to ask the woman how it was like to spend the night with a Serenhide. In the past, His Majesty called out to Chiron and commanded him to kill Duncan. Chiron trembles with fear as he held the sword. He jolted as His Majesty shouted at him, questioning what is he waiting for, and asked him to not waste time and kill Duncan quickly. With tears dropping from his eyes, Chiron expressed that Duncan is his teacher. He could not hold back his tears as His Majesty glared at him, stating that this man is no longer his teacher, but he is a traitor who tried to kill them all but selling information to the enemy. Chiron told His Majesty that there might have been some misunderstanding and pleaded to him to not let him be killed. His Majesty slapped Chiron and questioned when will his little brother turn into a proper member of the imperial family. Chiron panted with fear before His Majesty told him that his emperor commands him to either kill Duncan or kill himself. He pointed at Chiron and made it clear that this is where he proves himself to him, and questioned if he believes that he still has a choice. Chiron could not hold back his tears as he looked at Duncan and asked him that it's not true, is it? Stating that he isn't a traitor, right? He mentions that Duncan taught him for so many years, and he would not never toss that aside so easily, right? Duncan remained quiet before Chiron yelled at him to hurry up and reply, and so if that's the case, then he'd do whatever he could before Duncan asked him to listen to His Majesty's words. His Majesty asked him to go on and to not resist him, stating that a wrongdoer awaits his punishment. Chiron remembers Duncan's words when he used to teach Chiron. He told him that the sword is a ruler's cane, and he must always use it to walk towards his subject. It is not for the obsessive killing and the harming of others. He told Chiron that the reason he wields a blade should always be for the sake of his people. Chiron positioned the sword and killed Duncan. He suddenly flinches and wakes up. He rises and looks out the window to see the mermaid running around while giggling, causing him to be mesmerized in her smile. It's night time as a glass shatters on the ground. Chiron sighs and ponders that it's no use. He's aware that whatever he does, whatever medicine he takes, it is of no use. He knows that he'll always be like this as he gets the hallucination of Duncan crawling onto him. He then remembers the mermaid's smile, thinking that mermaids are very beautiful, but one must not be fooled by their appearance. They say that a mermaid's voice can steal your voice. Chiron mumbles that it may be preferable. Ian runs to Chiron with a worried look and questions what happened. Chiron responds that he came in just time. He commands Ian to call for the mermaid this instant. The mermaid trembles as the knight escorts her. He asks her what's the matter as she asks him to wait for a moment. He blushes looking at her before he turns his head away and states that they cannot wait as His Grace asked for her to be taken to him at once. She thinks about the phrase taken to him and wonders what's that. After taking her to the certain place, he tells her to enter alone from here. He states that she should go in and she will see the drawing room. After pass through, she should turn right and she will reach His Grace's bedchamber. As she steps in, he states that it took her long enough. She becomes surprised seeing his Serenhide, but then changes it to Chiron. He asks if she has practiced walking. She tells him yes, that is the case, and she has walked a lot. He then sits down and tells her to then walk over to him. She seems determined and takes step forward before falling down. He asks her what is she doing. He tells her to keep going. She pouts and gets back up. Her legs tremble, but she manages to walk towards him. She beams with happiness and tells him that she did it. She is really proud of herself before he states not yet and pulls her in. He grabs her hand and gets on top. He rubs her legs and questions how much did she walk for her legs to get so warm, causing her to stunned. He squeezes her leg and asks her if it's too much. She responds that she's fine as he leans in and asks her to then sing to him. He brushes his fingers on her lips and gets really near her face. Flashback. Kitten was watching the ocean as the butler called out to him and told him that it is rather chilly today. He told him that he has been watching the ocean all day long. He questions what is he thinking. Kitten responds that he was thinking that it's beautiful, so beautiful that he wants it to be his, if only just once he wants it to be his, back in the present. He touches her face and questions what is she waiting for. He again repeats to sing for him and squeezes her face. She becomes worried as she is not aware of how to sing. He becomes astonished and asks if she is not aware of what singing is. He questions if she has yet to learn the word, or has no one taught her for fear her singing might really curse humans. He mentions that they all said that they will be loyal to her and serve her well, but in the end they cannot hide their true feelings. He mentions that they think that she is a monster that will undoubtedly harm them, and mentions no wonder why such people stuck her in a tank. Kitten says Berceuse and asks if she understands. She jolts and realizes that he just spoke her language. He guesses that mermaids really do speak in the ancient tongue. She nods as he asks that Berceuse is the word for lullaby, right? He lays beside her and tells her that it's what he wants, a Berceuse here and now. He asks her again what is she waiting for, telling her to go on as she stares at him. She begins to sing as he ponders that this seems less like a song and more like a chant, the kind that rekindles old memories before one's very eyes. When he was asked about what he was thinking about, he had answered that he was watching the ocean simply because he wanted it to be his, but what he truly longed for was to sink into it and die. If only he could know the peace of slowly sinking beneath the waves. If only the ocean would carry him to his death. He imagines her grabbing onto him as he understands why he brought her here. As much as he kept saying those legends were just old wives' tales, he must have truly wished that she would seduce and kill him. She asks him what before he pulls her closer and kisses her. She gasps, questioning what is this? Before he asks her to keep going, he tells her to sign the Berceuse as he did not tell her to stop. He asks her to continue and leans on top of her, expressing that he wants to swallow it all. She sings as he kisses her. The morning appears and the mermaid rises up. She notices Kitten next to her and jolts before she realizes she fell asleep like this last night. She suddenly gets goosebumps and rubs her cheeks, thinking what was it that Kitten was doing to her. It felt all soft and her heart started beating really fast. She reaches her hand to him and wonders if this is what it feels like to be with her Saren hide. She touches his lips before he suddenly opens his eyes. She pulls her hand back, but he grabs her neck and strangles her. She grasps for air, asking him to please let go. He stares into her eyes, still having his hands on her neck. She's unable to speak properly and ponders that it hurts too much. She desperately asks him to let go. He flinches for a moment and gets back up. She coughs as he mentions that the sun has risen, but he did not dream this night. She seems pretty confused as well as tired. He leans in and asks if this is how she will steal his soul. He states that if that's the case, then he thinks that he sees her worth. She stares at him before he says Melusine, mentioning this is her name from now on. After a while, Anne rushes to Melusine. She checks her thoroughly while asking if she is all right, if she is hurt anywhere. She also tells Melusine that she drew up a bath for her, before telling her that the bow on her dress has not been untied. Anne nervously asks Melusine that nothing happened between her and his grace last night, right? Melusine does not seem to understand before she kisses Anne. Anne becomes all red and tells her that she must not do that. Melusine states that this happened last night. Anne is filled with shock as she asks if that happened last night, and if Melusine was the one to kiss his grace. Melusine asks about kiss as Anne is still shocked, and tells her that she cannot just put her lips on anyone from now on. Alright? She also tells her that what she did is known as a kiss, and it's something very important and special, and one only does it with someone they really like. Melusine thinks about it as she wonders if that means Chiron considers her his mate as well. She also wonders if that could be the reason he gave her a name. She mutters her name, Melusine, causing Anne to ask her what is she saying. She responds that her name is Melusine. Anne questions if that is really the case. Melusine responds yes it is. Melusine ponders that she's so happy to be known as Melusine. She is excited that she finally has her very own Serenhide. Meanwhile, Ian is shocked as he asks his grace if he actually slept. Chiron responds that is right, mentioning that it was a deep sleep too. Ian is still unable to digest that and asks if he really fell asleep and how. Chiron responds that he does not know. He ponders that for the past 5 years, ever since the late emperor passed away, he has not been able to get a good night's sleep, even with the aid of medicine. Ian asks if that was because of the mermaid, and questions if Chiron will then take her again to his room tonight. Chiron questions if he just came here at this hour to ask him that. He asks Ian what Marquess Hethnal has been up to as of late. Ian apologizes for taking time to reply. He states that Hethnal has doubled the number of soldiers on his marquisate since last year, and one can bet it will be triple at the end of this year. Excluding the nobles who were close to the late emperor, all the nobles in the palace and the capital have been contacted by him. Most of them have agreed to support him. Chiron states that the citation seems more dire than before. Ian agrees and questions if he shall send someone to the marquisate to investigate. Chiron responds that there is no need as he will see him in 2 months anyway, and asks Ian to just keep an eye on him in meantime. Ian responds that he understands. Chiron then calls Ian by his full name and questions if he is okay with this. Ian asks about what before Chiron responds that Ian is well aware of what he refers. Chiron stares at him and asks him if he is certain that he's ready to become a traitor along with him. His Grace mentions that he has repeatedly told him that there is no need for him to join the rebellion. He questions Ian that what is he trying to achieve by getting involved in this, telling him that he should be more cautious as he is his deputy commander and not a vassal. Ian tells his Grace that his will is his will and asks his Grace to please allow him to follow him until the end. His Grace tells Ian that he appreciates the sentiment and that he should leave now. Before leaving, he tells Chiron that if he needs, he can call the mermaid for him tonight as well. He thinks about that mermaid and is aware that she has some useful talents. He lights up a cigarette and wonders how many times must he listen to that song before he can fall asleep forever. Meanwhile, the guard informs them that his Grace has asked him to bring the mermaid. Anne tells the mermaid that she was right. Was not she? She knew that his Grace would call for her again today. She tells Melusine that his Highness will surely be pleased, and finds it good that she got ready in advance. Melusine does not know what pleased means. Anne tells her to be careful on her way as Melusine leaves. The guard tells her to watch out. Anne ponders that even the soldier is treating Miss Mermaid more gently than before, being aware that even though she has spent several nights with his Grace, she is still in the castle. And this is the first time something like this has happened. Anne ponders that his Grace must think of her as special. Melusine steps in the room and realizes it is so dark that she cannot see anything. She wonders about his Grace as he stands behind her. He suddenly grabs her from behind and wraps her arms around her waist. He calls out her name and tells her that she's late. He notices a necklace on her and asks her what is this. He tells her that today she has won a lot of useless stuff. She's a bit taken aback as she ponders that his touch here makes her nervous. She trembles as she asks him to wait a moment. He tells her that she looks uncomfortable and questions if he should help her. He pulls away her necklace. He wraps her around him and tells her that her scent is gone, mentioning that the maid did something unnecessary. He calls out her name. She looks at him as he questions if she should not just take off these clothes. She does not know what it means to take off. She asks him how could she take it off. He asks her if she does not even know how to take off her clothes. He tells her that he thinks he mentioned it before, but he does not wish to take on an animal that requires a lot of work. He pulls away the dress as she becomes startled. He tells her that he cannot believe she is embarrassed now. She begins to beam with joy as she tells him it is so comfortable and thanks him. He cannot believe that she is being happy or something like this. He tells her that if she's really thankful before he grabs her and pulls her near him. He tells her then she should do her job and sing the Berceuse. She stares at him for a while. The sun is already up as she opens her eyes. She notices that the sun is already rising. She thinks that although it is nice that his grace is with her everyday distaste, but like last time because he has not given her a kiss again. So it is disappointing because it felt nice to her. She also thinks that since they are really spending the night together, she guesses that she will soon have a mermaid baby that looks like Sarenhide. She hopes that it happens quickly because Sarenhide has such a beautiful nose and eyes. She kisses him on his forehead. She finds him really pretty. Right then she notices that he opens her eyes and she backs away. He grabs her by the arm and asks her if she knew how to do something like this. He places his hand on the back of her head and pulls her closer to kiss her. He passionately kisses her before she turns her head to breathe. He asks her to breathe through her nose. He states that is why she has been rubbing lips all this while. She's confused. He asks her to relax her lips properly since he will show her the way properly. He kisses her once again. After a while in the garden, Melusine is looking at the flowers when she's called by Anne. Anne tells her that she needs to wear shoes. Melusine responds that she does not like them as they're way too tight. Anne is dumbfounded as Melusine steps ahead. She notices that the flowers are blooming even more than usual. She remembers that Anne even told her their names before. She remembers Phaedra's but does not seem to know the other ones. His Grace appears and asks her if she's out in the garden today. She notices a butterfly that sits on his fingers. She mistakes it for a flower and asks for its name, stating that it is moving. He tells her that this isn't a flower but a butterfly. She isn't aware of it as he states that in her language it is called soul. The butterfly flies away as she calls out his name. She repeats it, causing him to say that it's remarkable that she remembers his name, but he flicks her on the forehead. She moans as he states that her pronunciation is terrible. He tells her to practice properly. She understands as he turns around stating that he will call her maid so she can look briefly and then go back. She wonders if he is leaving already and tells him to go together. She tells him that she wants to go together. He turns around and asks her to do as she pleases. She beams with joy and runs after to follow him. A swordsmanship match is being held. Anne asks Melusine that no matter what how could she follow his grace into the training ground. Melusine continues to observe them as Anne states that if His Highness had not turned a blind eye, both she and Melusine would have been kicked out. Anne asks if Melusine is listening. Anne states that it is dangerous here, and if she wanders in recklessly and get hurt before Melusine calls out to Anne and asks her to look at his grace. He is riding a horse causing Melusine to be impressed. Anne expresses that his grace truly is an expressive person, and mentions that her father was also a soldier at Triton Castle. He said that His Highness is the only commander who participates in training every time. Chiron tells everyone that the training is now over. Everyone thanks him as Anne states that if her father had not died in battle he would have been here. Melusine pays zero interest to Anne and runs after Chiron. Anne gets startled and calls out to Melusine telling her that she cannot continue to follow him around like this, but Melusine reminds her that he told her to do as she pleases. Anne asks her what is she even talking about. After a while, Melusine is secretly looking at him as Anne tells her that they really cannot do this. She is sweating from the fear and tells Melusine that she should go back to her room, as if they get caught then they will be in big trouble. Melusine questions why is that the case. Anne tells her that His Highness is currently having a meal with the Count right now, and they are probably having a serious discussion so they cannot interrupt. Melusine mutters meal as Anne tells her that it's not for her. Right then someone steps up and calls out to them, causing Anne to panic and apologize to him, stating that they will go back now. But he calls them and states that is not the case. He tells them that His Grace said that she is making too much noise lingering outside and asked her to come inside instead of waiting outside. Melusine beams with happiness as Anne is unable to process the situation. She asks if that is really the case as Chiron inside is having a sip of his drink. She is sitting at the table with them. His Highness asks the Count how much was spent this time. He responds that it seems to be 60 million per. His Highness states that he heard that the Emperor bought a diamond mine just a few days ago. The Count questions why does he keep buying mines where not a single gem has been mined, stating that it seems like Marquis Hesnel is encouraging him. His Highness states that the old man must be quite desperate. He is eager to squeeze the royal treasury dry. Melusine is busy trying to eat. She is unable to cut the pieces properly. His Highness questions when will the Serta's palace be completed. The Count informs him that it will be this year. Melusine creates noise as his Count can't help not notice that. He apologizes for getting distracted and tells His Highness that it will be done around early winter this year, and it will be finished once the interior decorations are done. There's a lot of discontent among the nobles because all the manpower has been diverted to prepare for the founding festival. His Highness mentions that he's finally free from the former emperor's surveillance, so he can run wild for a while. He mentions that this will be good news for Marquis Hesnel. The Count tells him that this time a few moderate families decided to join them because of this. Melusine again makes a noise. This time His Highness turns to her and questions how can she not eat properly when she is invited to a meal. He calls out her name as she is confused. He tells her that he told the maid to prepare what she usually eats, questioning if she's not in a good mood today. She shows him the fork and spoon and asks him what are these. The Count is shocked. He questions if she actually just called him by his name. He tells her that she pronounced it wrong and mentions that she should put more effort into the beginning and pronounce the end less softly. She calls his name again as he states that she still needs more practice. He mentions that if the fork is uncomfortable, then she can eat however she likes. But she should not just sit there like that. She is glad to know that she can eat however she wants to. She thanks him for the meal and picks the fish up by her hand and eats it, causing the Count as well as the attendant to be stunned. His Highness tells her that she is eating well and asks her if it is good. She tells him that it is very good and thanks him. The Count is shocked as Chiron wipes food from her mouth. His Highness asks the Count to continue what he was saying and questions how many families have decided to join them. The Count is unable to process the situation as he wonders what on earth is he even seeing right now. In the training ground, the Count asks His Majesty if he is the one who brought her here. Melusine is listening to their conversation. He tells His Highness that he's talking about the mermaid. He mentions that she has been appearing around him quite often recently, and now she even comes on the training ground. His Highness tells him to not pay attention to her. Melusine is secretly staring at him and thinks that she will surprise him. Meanwhile, he looks at her and finds it amusing that she thinks that she is hidden. The Count states that this falls under what he finds amusing. His Highness mentions that it is quite enjoyable watching a beast slowly become tame. The Count asks him if he has raised a beast before. About 10 years ago, a wild fox used to follow His Highness quite closely. They would find it rare for a wild fox to follow a person, finding it fascinating. His Highness would find it annoying that it was following him all the time. He was told that even if he says that, they knew that he was bringing the fox into his room every night, telling him that if he really intends to keep it that he should give it a name, so that it does not get lost. His Highness kept him under a bed and told him that he must not come out of here today as his brother will be there soon. He had tears in his eyes as he told the fox that his brother said he's going to hunt here. He told the fox that he might get caught by him, so he should be careful and not come out. Never, but in the end, he found the fox injured, back in the present. He responds that he did raise a beast once. He asks if he knows that the first thing one must do when they catch a beast is to build a sturdy cage. They should lock the beast in that cage and keep reminding it that it can never escape. Melusine notices Anne and becomes joyful. His Highness states even if it means death. After a while they are near the sea as Melusine becomes really excited. He asks her if she really likes it that much. He tells her that if she likes it, then why does not she get closer? She asks what about him. He tells her that he will wait for her hair. She begins to step towards the sea as he mentions that there is something he needs to check. She turns around and asks him what does he mean. Flashback. When he found the fox, he could not process it. He wondered why did it come out when he told it to not come out. Thinking about how many times he said it. So why did it still come out? He got on his knees before he flinched as he heard people talking about how it went in this way. He was aware that if it stayed there, his brother would catch him, and if he's caught then he would be killed cruelly for sure. He knew that in that case it would be better back in the present. Melusine steps towards the sea. The Count becomes shocked and tells His Highness that the mermaid is going into the sea. But His Highness asks him to leave her be. He mentions that he's testing to see if she really intends to escape. She soon begins to come to her original appearance as she ponders that it has been a while since she came into the sea and it feels really good. The Count is shocked as he mentions that as soon as she touched the seawater, her tail came back. His Highness calls out to her as she looks at him and wonders if she should go in for just a moment, thinking that it should be all right, right? Right then, His Highness shouts at her to come back right at this moment. She smiles and tells him to wait as she ponders that it was him who said that she could get closer to the sea. He tells her to not go off on her own as she goes in. His Highness grits in anger and questions. How dare she? He begins to go after her as the Count calls out to him. He thinks about the past when he was told that if he was going to keep the fox, he should give it a name, so that it does not get lost. He ponders that our name alone cannot hold anything. He begins to run towards the sea, thinking that even that fox, if it had a leash instead of just a name, it would not have been caught in a trap. He's aware that if he does not hold on to it properly, someone will take it away. In the past he thought that it would be better in that case to kill it off himself. Melusine comes back. She calls out to him before he grabs her and pulls her near. He grabs her from the waist and kisses her. She calls out to him, but he kisses her hard. He then positions a sword on her neck and asks her if she misses the sea that much. So much that she even wants to leave. She becomes really worried as she tells him no, she does not. She ponders that she just went for a minute and she had no intention of leaving at all. He asks Sarah, is he supposed to believe that? He tells her that indeed beasts should not be let loose without a leash. She calls out his name as he tells her that it was his mistake to let his guard down, thinking that she was tame. She thinks that he is acting strange. He makes her look towards the sea and tells her to take a good look at it because she will never see it again. He then grabs her and pulls her. She asks him why is he saying that. She continues to call out to him, but he does not respond. He commands everyone to return to the castle and tells them that he won't be staying at the palace tonight. He will use a nearby outpost, so he asks them to inform the servants as well. After a while, she asks him to let go as he has her hand grabbed tightly. He pushes her onto the bed. He begins to unbutton his shirt. She tells him that it hurts very much before he climbs onto the bed. He grabs onto her and comes near. He asks her what should he do with her. He touches her face and mentions that even if he puts a collar on her, she will quickly get rid of it, and tying her up like this is not very fun. She flinches by his touch. He calls out her name and tells her that he is the one who allowed her to have her name, so she has to listen to him. He brushes his fingers on her lips as she questions listen. He puts his fingers on her tongue and tells her to say that she will obey him. He asks her to say that she belongs to him and that she will only look at him and she will only follow him. She questions if she belongs to him. Before she tells him yes, she belongs to him. He smiles before he grabs her chin. He kisses her and tells her to never act on her own again. He gets on top and kisses her passionately. He puts his fingers on her mouth as she tries to breathe. He tells her it is not good if she spits it out, already mentioning that she needs to soak it properly. His touch goes somewhere as she flinches. She is shocked as she asks him to stop. She begins to tremble and tells him that it is very strange. He kisses her on her neck and asks her to relax. She grabs tightly onto him. He tells her that she is doing a good job. She remembers that this is different from last time, realizing that was not spending the night together, and this is how real baby mermaids are made. She asks him if this is over now. He questions her as he puts her hand on his face and tells her that the night is still long. She moans, and as he puts his finger on her mouth and tells her to not bite her tongue, she is unable to process this as she finds it uncomfortable deep inside her stomach. She then thinks that feels good, so she keeps making sounds. She bites his finger as he tells her that he told her to relax. He continues to go on as she finds this feeling very new, thinking that it is definitely strange and awkward, but it feels so good. She did not know something strange could feel this good. She then wishes to see his face as she touches his face. He then kisses her. She tells him that she likes it, causing him to smile slightly. The morning appears as she opens her eyes and finds Anne by her side. Anne is startled and asks Melusine if she woke up. She checks Melusine fever and is glad that she's awake. She tells her that she was out for 2 days, and this caused Anne to be really worried. She questions if her body is okay. Melusine responds that she is fine and asks Anne where is this place. Anne responds that this is her room. Melusine looks around and asks Anne where is Chiron. Anne tells her that he is not here as he went out to receive a guest. Melusine asks about the guest. Anne tells her that the daughter of Marquis Hesnel is here. It means that she is the Grand Duke's fiancée. Melusine asks about one man and one woman. Anne responds that yes, one can only marry one person. She states that you vow to only look at this person for your whole life and engagement comes first. Melusine states, but His Majesty spent the night with her and that pretty woman, too. Anne tells her that it's different from marriage. His Highness the Grand Duke is not married yet, which is why this lifestyle is possible. And since he is of royal blood, he can do whatever he wants. The mermaid states that she does not understand, thinking that having multiple partners is better for having more offspring. Anne tells her that she must not say such things. She then rises up and states that she will be away this afternoon. Melusine asks why. She responds that the head maid asked the junior maids to run errands, so she has to go to town. The mermaid asks about the town, as she's told that the town is the area outside the castle. There are markets and lots of people there are, especially now that it is the harvest festival. It is the time when the biggest festival in the empire is held. There are lots of interesting things, and there are also performances and so on. The mermaid becomes excited as she mentions that she wants to go too. But she's told that she must rest in her room until today. She begins to have tears in her eyes, thinking why cannot she, seeing this Anne feels sad. But still she cannot help it. Outside the maid asks Anne if it is okay for them to go with them. She just wants that she got permission from Count Luthern. The mermaid really wants to go. She cannot walk far, so it should be okay. Melusine asks Anne about things. Anne responds that is a chicken. She also asks about birds and a shining octopus. Both of the maid asks her to get back in the carriage as they become worried. They have arrived at the place. Anne tells her that she will go to the store over there and will be right back, questioning if she can wait here alone. She responds that she can do that. Both of the maids ask the knight to take care of her as they are already exhausted. Don't worry, mate begins to roam around as she thinks that there are so many things that she does not see inside the castle. She thinks that Chiron's world has these sounds and smells too, and finds it fascinating. She then notices a sound and becomes shocked. Told that she should not be wandering around alone, she asks the knight to wait a moment. With a surprising look on her face, she ponders that there is no mistake and this song is from her sisters. She begins to run away trying to catch the sound. She thinks that her sisters are here. A woman is on the ground as she states that she is dying. The other question if it is that old woman again. Everyone tells one another to not get close as she might be sick. The woman states that even now she is waiting for her serenhide and finds it sad. The mermaid calls out to her and asks her what is the matter, questioning if she's in pain. She becomes shocked as she looks at her and grabs onto her. Melusine asks her if she's not in pain but actually hungry. The woman responds yes, she is hungry, that she feels like she is dying and questions if she is her sister, asking Melusine to please save her. The mermaid smiles as the knight approaches her, telling her that this could be bad and they should get back to the carriage. The mermaid tells him to give her time as she looks for the fishes. She asks him to give these fishes to her as her sister is very hungry. Ask her what does she mean by sister and why fish all of a sudden. She takes those fishes and thanks him and runs towards that woman. A carriage stops and the man yells at the woman, questioning what kind of crazy woman is this, asking them to get out of the way. The mermaid asks him to wait a moment, stating that the old woman just is hungry and has to eat. He does not listen and positions his hand to slap her, questioning how dare she, asking if she doesn't know who she is blocking. Right then, a man appears telling him to move his hand. The man becomes shocked and begins to tremble. It is His Highness, as he asks the man if he did not hear him. He repeats again to move his hand away. The man kneels down and asks the Grand Duke to please forgive him. The mermaid runs to him and hugs him tightly. She tells him that she has missed him so much. He does not respond to her. Right then, his fiancée steps out of the carriage. She mentions, "So it is really indeed His Highness." He turns around and goes towards her, telling her that it has been a while and here he is causing such a commotion. Finding it embarrassing, he tells her that it is partly his fault too and asks her to not worry. She tells him that as expected. The hero of the empire has a generous heart. She tells him that she heard that he made another big contribution recently. He tells her that he heard from the Marquis that she'll be visiting next week. She questions if she was too eager. The mermaid looks at her. She tells His Kindness that she was curious about the Triton Duchy and she wanted to see it as soon as possible. She tells him that it will be soon her home, won't it? His Highness turns to look at Melusine before Hesnel asks Chiron that she has not committed any major rudeness, did he? He tells her that is not the case and asks her to go together from here on. She tells him that it's a delightful offer. She grabs his hands and tells him that she won't refuse this honor, but she asks him who is this young lady, referring to the mermaid, questioning if she may have an introduction. He tells her there is no need, causing the mermaid to flinch. He mentions that, as she can see, his part is quite troublesome. She tells him that beautiful butts are always the hardest to manage. The mermaid calls out to him before he calls her name, Melusine, and asks her to behave herself. She continues to stare at him. She thinks that he has such a strange expression. Right then, she feels something. The old woman states that when that time comes, she should be sure to choose the sea and grabs onto the mermaid. She tells her once again as she grabs her wrist tightly that if she hesitates then it will be too late. Back in her room, Anne asks her if she's going to stay in her room today, as well as the weather outside is really nice. The mermaid does not seem in a good mood as she mentions that he's not coming today either. Anne tells her that she told her that the Grand Duke is very busy these days. Anne assures her that once he finishes his work, he will come to see her right away. The mermaid asks her cannot she go, stating that if she goes to the town again won't she see him. Anne is dumbfounded and tells Melusine that it's not possible. She tells her that if she waits patiently, he will surely come, and she should just hang in there a little longer. The mermaid does not seem happy to know that. Anne asks her if she's bored then shall they go for a walk. She tells Melusine that they planted some beautiful roses in the garden, and seeing them might cheer her up. She goes outside as she ponders that Anne is such a liar. She thinks that even going out with the garden is not fun at all. She came here with His Highness before. She cannot help but miss him too much. Right then someone calls out to her and asks her if she can make way for her. It is Marquis Hesnel. She looks at the mermaid and stares, not as she looks closely. She seems familiar. She asks the mermaid if she remembers her.
Hansel tells her it is nice to see her again. She then wonders what was her name. His Highness calls her something. She replies Melusine. Hansel, all right, it is such a unique and beautiful name. She then asks her how is she now, and offers to take a walk with her if she's okay with it. She points out on their way that last time it was so noisy that they couldn't even properly introduce themselves. The Marquis with a smile then asks her which family is she from, or should she ask which country is she from. Melusine looks at her in confusion before realizing this is too difficult. She should have asked Anne to come with her and wonders if she's asking where she's from. When she remains quiet, the Marquis guesses from the Claymore Kingdom, or perhaps Mclin. She replies no, she is from Versailles. She pins her with a piercing look and repeats Versailles. She narrows her eyes, saying that it's strange. As far as she knows, there is no country on the Versailles coast, and most there are a few barren lands said to be inhabited by mermaids. She then asks her if she's implying that she's one of those mythical mermaids. Melusine beams at the girl and exclaims yes, that is right. However, the next second is her maid leans into her face, aggressively saying what makes her think she can spout such nonsense. However, Hansel murmurs what's the harm she finds amusing. She then looks down at her feet, which are shaking slightly, and points so that is why His Highness called her his pet. She expresses her relief and states it puts her mind at ease. Using the hand fan, she tilts her chin up, saying she was worried because he would have never taken care of anything before, and if it's a mermaid it makes sense though. She believes everyone wants to have a rare treasure. Melusine's expression shows how taken aback she is. She then remarks to think His Highness hurts such a human side to him. She is not complaining though. She is rather happy to discover a different side of him. Melusine asks her what is her name. She replies she is Estelle Hesnel, and states with arrogance that she is the daughter of Marquis Hesnel and the fiancée of Grand Duke Kitten. She also lets her know this will be the last time she can act so rudely with her. However, Melusine is still digesting the shock of her being his fiancé. She murmurs fiancé in shock. She does not understand everything Estelle is saying, but she asks her if she spent the night with Kitten. However, Estelle does not like her question as she pins her with a piercing glare and lets her know her impertinence is no longer amusing. She shoves her with her hand fan and demands why would she ask such a thing. Did she think the world changed just because she caught His Highness' eye? She pushes her face aggressively into hers and continues and ended up in his arms, or that she thinks she was pregnant already. Even the maid is shocked and states how could she say that? This shocks Melusine as well. She murmurs a baby. Not yet, but soon. Hansel says soon she's hoping for that. She comments how pitiful, and lets her know if she does, she would really die. Shocked, she gazes at the woman. Hansel says doesn't she know why she's letting her be. She points out among the nobles of the empire, having a mistress or two is not a big deal. The important thing is not to disrupt the succession. She declares, with an evil glint in her eyes, that in this country an illegitimate child faces a greater disgrace than a promiscuous person, and then questions if she thinks His Highness the Grand Duke would expect to see a child from her. She adds one last thing that His Highness, who was plagued by rumors of being an illegitimate child of the former emperor, would really want that. She slams her hand fan to her stomach and states she is of no use to His Highness. Leaning in closer, she whispers dangerously that even if she gives birth, both her and the child will be killed by His Highness. She turns on her heels and states well. Until then, she hopes she enjoys her dream. Melusine stands there in utter confusion and fear. On the other hand, Marquis Hesnel talks about his daughter to the Duke, saying she rushed off in such a hurry and went straight to see him, and it must have been surprising. He also pleads with him to be generous and understanding towards his daughter. Duke, however, lets him know there is no need to apologize, and he did not even care in the first place. With a sigh, he remarks he is still as cold as ever. He ignores the comment and gets to the topic, saying that he assumes he came to see him before the banquet because he has something to say. The Marquis admits he wanted to ask His Highness about his intentions regarding the usurpation of the throne. He asks her if there is a good time he has in mind. The Duke casually states it's him who has been acting quite blatantly these days, and he's rather curious why he's in such a hurry. The man laughs nervously to downplay the situation and says as expected, he cannot deceive His Highness. He then reminds him that this winter the new imperial palace, the Certus Palace, will be completed. He pleads with the Duke to think about it, for the Emperor to meet his death in the beautiful palace he has longed for, and to open a new era with a new Emperor. He remarks, wouldn't that be quite a spectacular sight? The The dupe doesn't sugarcoat the words and asks him directly if he's suggesting they assassinate the emperor during the completion ceremony of the Certus Palace and seize the throne. Panicked, he spills in one breath that most of the nobles are already leaning towards their side, pointing out, with the chaos caused by the rushed construction of the imperial palace, they can take advantage of the situation. However, the dupe points out the empress is about to give birth the next spring, and if they make a mistake, they could face internal strife and backlash from neighboring countries. The Marquis agrees that he's right, but they have been preparing for this for a long time, and he's worried about a possible leak from within. He also points out nobles have been long dissatisfied with the emperor. Kieran tilts his head slightly, murmuring, "Is it the nobles who are dissatisfied, or is it his desire to settle things neatly before Lady Estelle's marriage?" He points out if they make him emperor quickly, his only daughter can become the perfect empress without any stigma. The man startled replies there is no way that could be the case. Kieran just smirks and says he went too far with his joke. It's been a while since they met, so he got excited. He then dismissively lets him know he understands his concerns and he will reconsider the timing. But before leaving, the Marquis pleads that he has one more thing to add. He states that the reason he took His Highness' side wasn't merely to make his child the empress, but from the beginning his only master has been him. He flatly replies he sees and he appreciates that. As the Marquis steps outside, his man awaits impatiently and inquires how did it go. Did the Grand Duke oppose the plan again? But he counters, how could he? His man questions, but how many times has His Highness already rejected the plan? The Marquis assures him not to worry, pointing out the Grand Duke hates the Emperor more than they do and reminds him how many times has the Emperor sent him in the battlefield and instead of being swayed. He must have thought that it was better to seize the throne, that is why he agreed to be engaged to Estelle. He continues that more importantly, the Grand Duke's hatred for the former Emperor and Emperor Edward runs deep, so he should rest assured the Grand Duke will never betray them. On the other hand, Kieran was lost in a deep, haunting memory, a moment that still clawed at his conscience. He could still hear himself pleading, begging his brother to stop, but his brother only looked at him with cold disappointment, expressing that he was pained that he is still so naive to be upset over his teacher that the Emperor had killed in the last war. He then inquired if he still had affection for that ungrateful traitor. Kieran trembled in fear and murmured, "Brother." The Emperor then stated Marquis Hasnell said that he has been having nightmares ever since Duncan was killed. He also reminded him, he said he didn't want to go to war anymore, right? The Emperor asked him how a future Grand Duke of the Empire would be so weak, and today he needed to fix that weak attitude of his. With that, he picked a huge whip and ordered Marquis Hasmel to close the door on his way back. Kieran smirks, thinking now that the same Hasmel says that he had only one master from the beginning. The door swings open and the Count enters, asking if he may speak with him for a moment. He informs him there's a report that Lady Estelle was seen walking in the garden with the mermaid this afternoon. Kieran has observed that her attitude has been unusual since the market. He points out how in this, and she still decided to check it out herself. The Count apologizes, feeling that he should not have allowed her to go out in the first place. He suggests what if they hide the mermaid in a room now. However, Kieran reminds him Estella is a smart woman. She is probably calculating whether Melusine is a real threat to her position. Trying to protect her wouldn't do any good, so he believes it is better to keep an eye on things without intervening for now, since he has shown that he doesn't have much interest in Melusine. Kieran believes once he shows her he is sincere, she will likely back off on her own. On the other hand, a trembling figure enters the chamber of Estella. It is Melusine's maid, visibly shaking as she approaches. In a shaky voice, she asks, why did she call for her? Estella assures her there's no need to be afraid and that she only wants to get closer to Lady Melusine. She then asks the maid if she can bring her. The maid is shocked and blurts out the mermaid then corrects herself. No, the lady is still very unwell. She thinks to herself, for some reason she has a feeling it is wrong to show the mermaid to the Marquis' daughter. And the Count's previous requests keep bothering her as well. She remembers the Count's warning that the Grand Duke ordered strictly that unless he gave a direct command, they should not make any rash decisions regarding a mermaid. The maid thinks that the mermaid is special to the Grand Duke. They absolutely must not send her away. Estella asks her in a silent voice that she's saying no. The maid says yes and apologizes to her. She repeats a sorry in a cold voice, and before she knows, two maids are dragging her and making her kneel in front of her. Estella says she wasn't asking for a favor, was she? She tells her she was giving her an order. Then she states, fine, they shall talk again. Sitting with her knees crossed, Estella asks the maid kneeling in front of her that why is she being so stubborn. She guesses it is probably because there is no trust between them, right? She declares, fine, let's do it this way, reminding her of her 3 polite younger siblings, and flinches at that. She goes on that at a young age, the Duke achieved a lot on the battlefield, and she thinks her siblings will learn a lot if they go to the battlefield too. Anne starts pleading that her siblings are still too young. Estella then looks down at the woman and questions if she dislikes her helping her, and they say that everyone learns everything in real situations anyway. Tears start streaming down the woman's face, and she admits she was wrong and she will do as she says. Estella rises from her seat and remarks she is pretty when she listens. A few days later, Anna declares she is ready after doing her makeup. Melusine, who looks fabulous in such a beautiful dress, asks but where are they going? Anne replies, didn't she tell her before? It's the harvest festival this week. At that, excitement fills her, shining on her face as she remembers. It was amazing. They had so much fun last time. She also remembers there were flowers and candy, and she got some. Anne looks away as she reveals today is the last day of the harvest festival and a grand banquet will be held in the evening. She informs her with a haunted face that she is going to the banquet too, and that she will dance happily, wearing a mask and meet a lot of people. At the mention of people, Melusine blushes deeply and asks if Kieran will come too. Just then, a knock interrupts their conversation. A maid enters and informs Lady Estelle asked her to bring Miss Melusine to her. This confuses Melusine. The maid further says the lady asked her to bring Miss in a hurry. She also looks down at her feet, pointing out although it is summer, the night is cold, so she must wear shoes. Melusine, probably realizing something is wrong, tells Anne she hates this. With a pleading look on her face, she tells her to bear with it just for today, and at the banquet she might meet the Duke again. She whispers to her that if she meets him, she must ask him for help, before she can further ask what is wrong. The maid comes and drags her away despite her protests that they must hurry. She then gives her a mask, insisting that she must wear this. Melusine is confused. She doesn't know what's going on at all, but she just hopes to see Kieran there. When she arrives at the banquet, she gazes at the venue with her mouth hanging open. Just then, a man approaches her and asks if she's lost. She replies that she is trying to find Kieran. He asks if she's referring to the Duke. At that moment, the man realizes he has seen this pink-haired girl before and remembers she was with the Duke outside the castle. However, people around them start to gather and whisper about her, wondering who she is. What piques their interest is that she is wearing a commoner dancer mask. They question why a commoner would be with His Highness, the Duke. Among them, a girl clears her throat. It's Estelle who murmurs maybe she's the dancing girl the Duke sent for the banquet. The men begin to get excited, saying the Duke certainly knows how to enjoy a party. Melissa gasps when someone grabs her by the hair. They begin to talk about her, wondering where he found such a rare item and speculating if she dyed her hair to hide how ugly she is. They then start pushing her, wanting her to dance. When she tries to protest, Estelle appears behind her, holding her shoulders. She smiles and whispers in her ear that she thinks Melusine still doesn't understand her position. She whispers in her ear, can she not notice how all the men seem to want her? Reminding her isn't the Duke treating her the same way. She starts struggling against her hold and cries. But Estelle says struggling is useless. After telling her that no one will help her, Estella pushes her roughly. Melissa stumbles, nearly falling to the ground, but someone catches her by the waist. She looks up at a masked man who gazes down at her with intense eyes. She asks him who is he? Kieran gazes down at Melusine and lets her know to make no more mistakes. Shocked, she looks up at him and murmurs, this is Kieran. However, he grabs her wrist and drags her away from the party. The people there are looking at them shocked, because even with the mask on, they realize he is the Grand Duke. People in the crowd start to gossip, wondering why he is so angry all of a sudden. Estelle stands there gazing at them. Outside, when she continues to whimper, he reminds her sharply that he told her to shut up, and states that she always does something he doesn't ask for. In a soft whisper, she admits she missed him. She then looks up and states again boldly that she misses him. He points out her clothes and sharply remarks, so that is why she wears clothes like this, because she wishes to meet him. Snatching her mask away, he shoves his face close to hers and asks in a threatening voice if she wants to be treated like this by him. He then kisses her sharply and intensely. She thinks she likes it, but it still isn't enough for her. He trails kisses down her neck, pausing to catch his breath. He tells her this is her last chance and that she should not do anything but go home quietly. After that, he pulls away, but she clings to his jacket. She whispers that she misses him and asks if he will come to her room again. With grief in her eyes, she questions isn't he curious about her? He looks back and caresses her cheek softly, but his words are cold as ice. He lets her know it seems like she's misunderstanding everything. He declares she is not that important to him, and it's not like they have a relationship from the beginning. He turns his back on her and lets her know if she has feelings for him. She shouldn't disturb him with those feelings because they're just her imagination. After some time in the garden, she wanders absently when Estelle appears behind her and remarks after making a fuss is there where she ends up. She then says in the castle garden, this is only where the Grand Duke is offering, and states if she was in her place, she couldn't tolerate any more. She then points out isn't this her first time attending a dinner she just noticed, especially with the mask? It is the mask worn by a dancer, so these are truly things that make people laugh. Estelle points out how the Highness did not even bother to ask why did she wear such a mask, and this only proves that he already thinks of her as someone too low. Melusine just looks up at her with sadness swirling in her eyes and asks her if she doesn't like her. Estelle smiles gracefully and replies she does not hate her, but she rather wants her to know her place. She then asks her if she still wants to have children with the Grand Duke. She replies honestly that she still does. Estelle states that cannot happen because she is a toy and toys are only meant to play without any problems. She denies even though he dresses his toys very nicely, he still gets anxious when other people play with his toys. However, there is a truth that no one wishes to spend their entire life with mere toys. Turning on her heels, she marches while saying beside if he is bored, he would just throw it away and go. However, Melusine is confused and repeats throw her away. Estelle stops just to answer her that if not, why did the Grand Duke leave her alone? With Estelle's final words, declaring that she has been dumped, she leaves Melusine to deal with her inner turmoil. Sadness fills Melusine's eyes as she wonders if she has truly been cast aside. She recalls the Duke's words when he told her that her feelings were merely her imagination and that she shouldn't bother him with them. Now she thinks she must have disturbed Kitten, and that's why he dumped her. She thinks she knows what it means to be thrown away. She remembers sisters who wouldn't successfully have babies would feel that they were thrown off, and once thrown out, it is over. There is no turning back. She leads to a heart-wrenching conclusion that Kitten and she are done. And finally it ends like this. On the other hand, Karen's mind is filled with her confession that she misses him. As he stands there, lost in thought about her, Estelle appears behind him and asks what he is doing there. With a smile, she inquires if he has returned because he dropped something, adding that she didn't see anything. He thanks her for telling him. She asks if so, can he do her a favor? She wants him to dance with her today. She says there is a proverb that says that men and women who dance last at the mask party will be happy for a long time. And by a very long time, she means maybe a lifetime. So would he give her the honor of dancing? He asks her why she wants that. He lets her know that he doesn't want this. She murmurs that is right. He can say it like that. He can ignore the flying insects. She says, however, if the insect is poisonous, it is better to take medicine. She then remarks he doesn't even bother to give her a knife on the doll he is using. She extends her hand and asks, is he really not going to hold her hand? He murmurs an apology, but in the next moment, he brushes past her, saying he thinks he left something inside. She stands there, shocked, and clenches her hand in anger. Meanwhile, Melusine stands by the sea, the words of another mermaid ringing in her mind that having children is a very difficult thing. In fact, someone rarely gets successful the first time, so if things get a little dangerous or things don't go well, she can come back at any time. She thinks to herself that Estelle said that Kitten will kill her if she has a baby. She starts to take off her clothes thinking that is right. She will look for another serenade to have children. First she needs to go back to the Yanni. She thinks if they ask where she has been all this time, she would say that she was trapped in human webs and almost got in big trouble. She will tell them about Kitten, that she thought he was her serenade and it turned out it was just an illusion. Her eyes reflect sadness, but a sudden noise snaps her attention away. Before she can fully turn, someone grabs her hand with a painfully tight grip. Kitten's voice cuts through the air as he snarls, since when is this her room? She gasps in shock, whispering his name. His eyes burn with a manic intensity as he glares at her, gritting his teeth. He warned her not to be reckless. This was her last chance. Without another word, he hoists her by the waist and settles her on the horse, forcing her to sit in front of him. When she tries to speak, he harshly covers her mouth, ordering her to shut up and not say a word. She wants to cry out, desperate for breath, but later asks in a shaky voice, was he looking for her? Why? She reminds him he was the one who told her to leave and left her. His eyes narrow as he looks down at her with a cold, hard stare. Left her, he doesn't even know what she is talking about, warning her they'll finish this conversation back at the castle. But when she starts struggling in his arms, begging him to let her go, he grips her tighter. She gazes at him with her pretty eyes, thinking if Kieran really doesn't leave her, she wants to make sure he can be her true serenade. She shuts him up by kissing him. He returns the kiss. She thinks she just wants to conceive his child. He then turns her and tells her to bend and hold tight. He leans in closer, whispering dangerously in her ear that how dare she think of escaping him. She loses herself in the sensation as he tells her from now on she should not think about anything like that, because he will make sure she is unable to do anything like that. Her hands tremble as she tells him he is going too fast. But he just orders her to hold it correctly, because he is here and kisses her again in the bedroom. He plants soft kisses along her neck. When she closes her eyes, he uses his hand on her jaw to tilt her face at him and warns her not to close her eyes and to keep looking at him. She slides her arms around him and admits that he's all she wants to see and pleads with him not to leave. She promises she will do whatever he likes but just not to leave. Amused, he asks what if there is nothing that he likes? She counters, well, there's no wrong in trying. After that, he starts kissing her again while she trembles with the sensation and asks him to do that again. The whole night they spent loving each other. She realizes he is so warm, she wishes to stay together like this forever. The next day, the light streaming through the large window wakes her, and she finds herself wrapped in the cocoon of his arms. A moment later, his voice startles her as he asks if she's awake. He tells her yesterday she passed out earlier, but now it seems like her stamina is still there, isn't it? But she quickly says no 3 times. She climbs on top of him, holding a pearl between her fingers and asks, "What is this?" He replies, "It's a pearl." Taking it from her, he examines it and reveals, this is a legendary gem that can only be obtained from the goddess of the sea. There's a legend that says a mermaid's tears can turn into pearls, and it seems to be true after all. He wants to know if this happened before with Duke Barton. Maybe he was locking her up to get the pearls. He plays with her hair, causing her to complain that it tickles. She tells him she doesn't cry easily, so she doesn't know. And if people cry easily? He replies, who knows? His expression turns cold at her next question. She asks when he cries. Flashes of him smiling with his teacher, followed by the memory of him shedding tears of blood, race through his mind. She confesses that if he's sick or sad, she will definitely cry for him. He tells her there's no point in his crying because his crying does not produce gems. She looks confused and tries to argue, but he shuts her up with a kiss. He then asks her if she is tired. She replies now she likes it. Out of the blue, she announces she wants to have a baby. He seems startled when she demands him to give it to her, but then he composes himself and with an arched eyebrow, he reveals it is up to her. As Kieran is sitting in a chair comfortably, Count glares at him and asks how long does he plan to stay here. He replies sarcastically that should he set a date for visiting his own castle. The Count counters it is not a castle, but a villa. He then informs him Marquis Hethnal waited in his office all night. Kieran thinks probably what happened at the party reached the Marquis' ears. The Count reminds him that if he stays here, but he is sharply cut off by His Highness who demands so, what would happen? Kieran points out the banquet arrangements went well, so what was the reason for his coming all over to his office? The Count, having no other option, reminds him with a worried look that the day's coming soon, so he thinks they should be more careful. Kieran, with a lazy posture, declares that he's been thinking about this a lot recently. The Marquis Hethnal, his daughter, and him. He thinks they're all misunderstanding something. It's them who need him right now, not the other way around. Ian looks completely worried. Meanwhile, Kieran rises from his seat and casually murmurs, or should he just spread a rumor that the Marquis and he are plotting treason? He stands 2 feet away from Ian, warning him to remember that it's not about waiting for the flag of victory in battle. It's about the fact that after the battle is finished, they must return to the land alive to win. He warns him to not just go ahead and act. Ian nervously replies he will remember it. Kieran says good they're almost there, so he shouldn't let small problems ruin everything. Anne looks around in shock, exclaiming this is Villa Triton, and she heard this villa was used by Empress before. She tells him a sign that it is sad that the Grand Duke lived here when he was a child, and bringing Miss Mermaid here, might there be any hidden meaning? Melusine smiles nervously, saying she doesn't know anything like that. Anne just responds that she's very excited. She then adds it is a great honor for her to be able to work in the House of the Glorious. In principle, she cannot even enter a historical place like this. She then informs her that Count Ian said that Melusine was the one who insisted that Anne be the one to accompany her and not someone else. She points out even though she has made a huge mistake. Melusine gently touches her and tells her it is great to have her here. She missed her. Anne falls in front of her on her knees and apologizes to her that she was being selfish. She says she doesn't know how remorseful she felt after that time. And this will not happen again, she promises. She bursts into tears, which worries Melusine, who asks her if she's okay. Anne replies, crying her eyes out, that of course she is ok. She then asks her if she wants to have a shower, and she will also comb her hair. Their conversation is interrupted by Kitten, who leans on the doorframe and announces no need to dress up too formally. Both the girls let out a gasp in shock. Melusine makes a direct beeline for him and leaps into his arms, exclaiming that she misses him. He affectionately calls her Mel and wraps his arms around her frame. He then picks her up in a bridal style and asks will she be good today, while she is scared that she might fall down. Anne simply leaves the room, but not before thinking lucky today the flower petals are floating in the bathtub. As they relax in the warm water of the bathtub, he touches her legs and observes that even though she's submerged, her feet remain unchanged. He asks if her tail will only show up in seawater. She replies that it's impossible in ordinary water. He leans in, planting kisses on her shoulder, teasingly saying it's a relief. That means she won't escape unless she's in the sea. She begins to squirm in his arms, trying to push him away. Amused, he points out how she once would have eagerly thrown herself into his arms. She responds that her feet and body are already too sore. He teases her further, asking if it's all because of him. Of course it is, she replies, but when he kisses her, she gasps in surprise. Looking at her intently, he asks what he can do to help. Should he at least apologize? She gazes at his handsome masculine face. She thinks she would be lying if she tells him she doesn't like it. He says her poems. If she sings him a poem, he promises he will do nothing. Confused, she asks in here? He replies yes in here. She takes him in his arms and starts to sing poems for her, but then she stops suddenly, causing him to open his eyes. He asks her what is it? She replies there's a weird smell in here. A spicy smell. Her nose scrunches up involuntarily. He tells her it is because of the fire. She recognizes that fire is the one and he told her about. She said it was very dangerous and it would be painful to go near it. He reveals when he was 5 years old this villa almost burned. At that time he successfully found the trace. She panics and starts to touch him everywhere, asking him if it was dangerous and if he was hurt somewhere. He points at the room, saying the fire started here. The memory resurfaces. He was making wooden swords, and the maid came and asked him if he was still making wooden swords, reminding him it is late. He countered, but his brother was born, and he wanted to give him a gift. The maid, with a nervous smile, told him he wasn't his brother but his nephew. He murmured, that is right, his nephew. He then said he heard the birthstone for November is topaz, and he wanted to decorate it with a big topaz stone here. He asked the maid if his nephew would love it. She replied, of course, it is a very nice sword. He murmured to himself it would be nice if he likes it. But then they got startled as their door swung open and a man rushed in panic, demanding they must leave now, and that the villa was on fire. As they all rushed out of the villa, the fire exploded. Their first priority was to safely take Kitten out of the villa. The maid cried, wondering how this could all happen. The butler asked His Highness to stay on his back. They had to get out of here quickly. Kitten murmured, no, if they don't get out smartly, they will all die. He snatched a curtain and told them to cover their noses with this, and to not act hastily. They will go out from the main road they know. They all listened to him, and they all rushed out of the villa. He then looked back at the butler and asked why there was a fire all of a sudden. The man replied he was not sure, but he found a flame in the hallway on the second floor, right in front of the bedroom that His Highness used, and nothing around was burning before. He was confused himself. How could this happen? His eyes widened in disbelief as he thought about his brother and lost consciousness. Kitten's brother said he heard that he repeatedly refused to meet the Empress and wanted to know if to him she did not look like a lady. Kitten replied, it's not like that. He just thought, Her Highness the Empress must rest because she looks very tired lately, and that the Empress is going to birth a child soon. His brother lashed out that the Empress was pregnant with a prince, and he wasn't his brother and not a little child but the prince who will rule the empire. He then stated his attitude like this always made him laugh, and that he felt pity for him who suffered from bearing all kinds of dirty speculation since birth. Therefore he raised him himself. His brother said he had the power, the power to rule the entire empire. Therefore he has started to become afraid of him, that he would kill him one day and take his rightful place, and that he regretted taking him in the first place. Kieran thinks his own brother started being scared of him, and he couldn't overcome that fear until the point that he decided to kill him. He thinks that his brother might have thrown him away that day, but he realized his brother was the saddest person in the world. He had ridiculous suspicions of him that he thought that he was going to kill him. He believed he had gone crazy from living his whole life on the warfield, so he tried harder to prove his brother wrong, with just one hope that his brother would understand. But in the very end, Kieran became the one who ended up killing his brother. Melusine hugs him from behind, telling him it doesn't matter, so he should forget everything and not even think about it. She will help him so that he can sleep calmly. She gives him a soft kiss, and they both fall asleep in each other's arms. The next day, Kieran is informed that Duke Barton's mother's family started a civil war. The Count further informs him they even rejected the messenger sent by him and insisted for the independence of their territory. He asks Ian what's the scale. He replies the scale is quite large, so the messengers sent cannot handle it alone, and they will be responsible for what they have done. Kieran rubs his forehead and instructs him to create a fleet with the same level as before. He decides to leave tomorrow morning. Ian says okay, he will do that, but is stopped by Kieran, who tells him to stay here. He wants him to stay here and continue watching Melusine so that things like last time do not happen again. With a smile, Ian says that it's okay, he understands, but inside he's crying and whining. Kieran then asks about the items the priest gave him and asks what are those. He says he received a message that this was finished, so he brought it to him. He opens the box and takes out an ankle and thinks now he can take care of his mermaid very well. He plays with her hair as she whines about whether he really has to leave. He reassures her that it's not a big problem and that he will be back soon, but then she insists they should do it one more time. He replies that he doesn't know how. She declares her desire to have children, repeating that she wants it. He stops her, prompting her to ask if he doesn't want it. Anxiety washes over her as Estella's earlier words echo in her mind. If she gives birth to his child, he would kill both the child and her. She wants to believe everything Estella said was a lie and to trust Kieran, hoping he will be her own serenade. Kieran, however, abruptly changes the subject, making a comment about fish. Confused, she looks at him as he tugs her by the waist. She complains it's too hard. He reminds her that she was the one who wanted more, so now she needs to move correctly. Following his instructions, she shifts down as he guides her. Suddenly, he puts an anklet on her foot, startling her. "What is this?" she asks. He replies it's a shelter. She inquires for what? He just says it's suitable for her, and then adds that next time he might make something similar for her neck. He begins planting kisses on her neck, and then drags her down onto the bed, warning her not to think about going near the beach from now on. Confused, she asks why, and he repeats that she should keep it in mind. 1 month later, Ian reminds her that His Highness left a message not to allow her to go out, especially not to the edge of the beach. She says in a meek voice that she is feeling frustrated here. Anne chimes in, asking if they can at least go for a walk, mentioning that it has been a month since His Highness left the castle and that Miss Mermaid has become lonely. The Count notes that he's heard she's been busy learning how to use the tableware in the restaurant. Anne, however, is frustrated, explaining that this has only happened once or twice and that Miss Melusine cannot just hold a fork all day. She adds that the mermaid has learned everything at the dining table. Melusine states that this is because she misses him. With puppy eyes again, she claims that when she goes to the sea, she can sense when Kieran's ship is coming. She pleads with them to join her. He lashes out, saying that's still not possible. Outside, while everyone is at the beach having fun, the Count panics, thinking about what he should say to His Highness if he finds out. Anne reassures him that she will take care of Miss Melusine well. Just as she starts to approach the water, Anne stops her, reminding her not to go far. A frown appears on Melusine's face as she asks, "Do people not like the ocean? Why is she being warned not to go near it?" Anne counters that it's not about not liking the ocean. For the Triton people, it is their home and village, but it's also the most feared. Anne admits that she also lost her father at sea, so she must be careful. Just then, Melusine's attention is caught by a group of dolphins. She exclaims maybe they're the kids she knows, and she starts running toward them. Anne panics and calls after her, but Melusine doesn't listen, insisting that if she were friends with them, she wouldn't be afraid of the sea. With that, she jumps into the water. Anne and the Count both panic, and the Count screams at Anne to call someone quickly. They have to save her. Anne looks confused, and the Count yells at her that the anklet worn by Miss Melusine is made of zeolite, a gem that expands when it touches the sea. Inside the water, Melusine feels her feet become heavy, realizing Kieran's warning that she shouldn't go near the beach. She remembers the promise she made to Kieran and how she has broken her promise with Serenade twice. Thoughts swirl in her mind. Does the ocean hate her too? Just then, Kieran swims toward her beneath the waves. She wonders if he's come to kill her now. Outside, Anne is crying her eyes out. They both gasp as they see the unconscious Melusine in Kieran's arms. Kieran demands that they return to the castle, vowing to deal with them later. He looks down at her with a bitter smile, murmuring that even until the end, she still tried to leave him. And light flickers far above the surface, a cruel reminder of the world Anne is leaving behind as she sinks into the deep blue abyss. In the quiet suffocation of the water, a voice echoes in her mind, asking if people truly hate the ocean. Her thoughts drift to the greatest fear of her life, the terror of losing her father to the merciless sea. Now, as the frigid water embraces her, she wonders if this is what death feels like, a cold, solitary descent into nothingness. "I'm scared," she whispers in the silence of her soul, the crushing weight of the deep making everything feel terrifyingly final. With a violent, lung-burning gasp, Anne bolts upright in bed, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. The nightmare of the drowning still clings to her skin as she stares wide-eyed into the dim light of the room. A stoic figure sits in the shadows nearby, his presence both a comfort and a sudden shock. Kieran watches her with an unreadable expression, his voice low and steady as he notes that she is finally awake. Disoriented and desperate for reality, Anne stammers his name, her voice trembling with the remnants of her terror. As Anne attempts to lurch toward him, Kieran's voice cuts through her panic with sharp authority, commanding her not to move. He informs her that while she is out of immediate danger, she nearly drowned and must remain still to recover. His hand reaches out, a gentle but firm touch against her cheek that contrasts with the intensity in his gaze. He demands to know why she did something so reckless, his voice dropping to a dark, possessive tone. He reminds her of his previous warning, his hand clamping firmly around her ankle as if to tether her to the spot, making her wince from the sudden, forceful pressure of his grip. Kieran towers over Anne in the dimly lit, opulent room, his presence heavy and suffocating. His golden eyes flash with a predatory coldness as he asks if she is an animal that simply cannot understand what is being told to her. Anne's breath hitches as she recoils against the bed, her pink hair fanning out like silk against the dark covers. She stammers out a weak denial, claiming she only saw a dolphin in a desperate attempt to explain herself, but Kieran's gaze only hardens. He scoffs, demanding to know if his 4 months of effort were truly thrown away for something as insignificant as a dolphin. Without warning, his hand lashes out and seizes her arm with a crushing grip. He looms even closer, his face inches from hers as he asks with a dark curiosity if she actually enjoys this suffering. Anne winces in genuine pain, a small gasp escaping her as his fingers dig into her skin. She pleads with him, her voice trembling as she asks Kieran to let her go because it hurts. His expression remains a mask of frigid indifference as he echoes her words, wondering what would happen if he did let her go. He stares down at her, the silence stretching between them as he questions how she would find a way to escape him this time. He leans down, his weight pinning her to the bed, and whispers that he does not like to repeat the same thing to her, calling her Mel. With a chilling finality, he warns her not to think that he will keep her forever. Anne looks up at him, her eyes wide with shock and a growing sense of confusion. Kieran lets out a sharp, cold breath, dismissing her confusion by stating there is no use in explaining himself anymore. Anne softly calls out his name, searching for a spark of the man she thought she knew. Ignoring the vulnerability in her voice, Kieran pulls her close and issues a final, low command for her to hug him. A soft, ethereal haze fills the void as a voice whispers a desperate plea for intimacy. "Hug me." It is a moment of pure vulnerability, drifting in the silence of a dream. Kieran pauses, his gaze heavy with unspoken emotion, before leaning into the warmth. Their world dissolves into a tender, soft, focused embrace, her pink locks flowing like silk against his dark clothes, as they share a quiet, intimate connection that feels almost too real. The dream shatters as the morning sun pierces through the tall, arched windows of the grand bedroom, casting golden light across the ornate architecture. Anne lies deep in slumber, her long pink hair a chaotic mess across the gray bedding. Kieran stands over her, his hand reaching out to brush a stray lock of hair away with surprising gentleness. "Mel," he calls out softly, the name lingering in the quiet room like a secret. He leans down, his face mere inches from hers as he breathes out a firm, "Wake up." Anne's eyelids flutter, a drowsy escaping her lips. But as her eyes focus on Kieran's sharp features so close to her own, she jolts awake with a startled "aha," the sudden realization of his proximity sending a jolt of adrenaline through her. Attempting to regain her composure, Anne sits up against the ornate golden headboard, her cheeks flushed with the residue of her dream. Kieran has already prepared for her day, sitting at her bedside with a silver tray. "I brought you food," he states, his tone steady and practical. She looks at the meal, then back at him, her voice a bit shaky as she acknowledges him, Kieran. The atmosphere shifts, becoming laden with a strange, heavy tension. Anne fidgets with the sheets, her eyes darting around the room before she finally manages to speak. "Kieran, you know," she begins, her voice trailing off as she searches for the right words. He stares at her with a blank, expectant expression, responding with a simple, blunt "what?" Gathering her courage, Anne looks him in the eye, her request hanging between them like a physical weight. "Kieran, why don't you take it off?" she asks, her eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and daring. Kieran stands up, towering over her, his brows furrowing in genuine confusion. He stares back at her, completely missing the mark of her intent as he asks, "Let go of what?" Anne stands in the elegantly decorated room, her long pink waves cascading down her shoulders as she avoids direct eye contact. A soft blush creeps onto her cheeks as she admits that she's just never seen Kieran take his clothes off before. Kieran looks down at her with a piercing gaze, his dark features unreadable against the opulent backdrop. Despite the tension, Anne continues, her voice a mixture of innocence and boldness as she confesses that she is simply curious. The tension breaks into a moment of playful annoyance as Kieran delivers a light flick to her forehead. He dismisses her curiosity as nonsense, bluntly telling her to stop talking bullshit and eat quickly. Anne winces, rubbing the spot where he struck and pouting with exaggerated offense as she asks why he always has to do that. Her momentary annoyance vanishes the second her eyes land on the meal prepared for her. Gasping with delight, she exclaims at the sight of the food, her blue eyes shimmering with pure, childlike excitement, as if she has forgotten their previous banter entirely. As she settles at the ornate table, Kieran stands behind her like a watchful guardian, advising her that there's no need to struggle with cutlery and that she should just eat comfortably. However, Anne isn't having it. She firmly rejects the idea, her competitive spirit flaring as she determinedly insists she will try and do it well today. She grips the silver utensils with renewed focus, feeling the familiar weight return to her hands as she prepares to tackle the fish. But as she makes her first attempt, a frustrated sigh escapes her when the fork doesn't bite into the meat as cleanly as she hoped. Refusing to let a small stumble deter her, Anne puts on a brave face and tries to steady her nerves. She tells herself that it's okay, her hands trembling slightly with effort as she prepares for another attempt at elegance. She narrows her eyes in deep concentration, pouring all her mental energy into the simple task. In her mind, she reminds herself that she has practiced a lot for this very moment, and she won't let her efforts go to waste. Suddenly, the fork slips against the ceramic plate with a sharp, piercing sound that echoes in the quiet room. A small gasp of surprise escapes her as she loses her grip once more, the fish remaining stubbornly intact. Anne looks down, her cheeks flushing a deep crimson with embarrassment as she insists that she was actually able to do it before. Kieran leans in close, his shadow looming over her as he looks at her struggles and skeptically questions if her claim is actually true. Before she can retreat into her shell of shame, Kieran reaches out, his large, warm hands enveloping hers to guide her movements. He leans in close to her ear, his voice low and steady as he concedes that she is clearly more advanced than she was before. Anne freezes, her heart racing at the sudden proximity as he helps her navigate the meal with an unexpected, guiding gentleness. Anne gazes down at her plate, her fingers delicately gripping her utensil as she expresses a simple wish to eat, just like Kieran. He watches her with a steady gaze, promising her that she will find the experience to her liking. The air between them grows heavy with unsaid emotions as Anne leans in, her face flushed with a soft, rosy hue. She admits that she misses the version of Kieran that smiles, her voice trailing off as she confesses that she misses him every single day. Kieran draws closer until their breaths mingle, his expression somber as he breaks the news of the upcoming emperor's birthday banquet. He explains that the celebration of the sovereign's birth requires his presence, meaning he will be gone for at least a month. Anne's hand trembles slightly as she toys with her food, asking if such a duration is truly long. Karen's confirmation is solemn, acknowledging the weight of 30 days apart. The silence is broken by Anne's soft plea to join him on his journey. Kieran pauses, his profile cast in shadow as he processes her request. A wave of cold isolation seems to crash over Anne. She confesses her deep-seated fear of being alone, her eyes wide with the dread of his departure. After a tense, lingering silence, Kieran finally turns back to her. Bathed in a warm, ethereal light, he grants her wish, inviting her to accompany him to the royal palace. The sun filters through the vibrant canopy of the forest as birds chirp from the branches, oblivious to the grand procession below. The rhythmic thud of hooves and the creak of wooden wheels echo against the path as a heavily guarded carriage makes its way toward the capital. Anne, ever attentive, leans toward her young charge to explain the scale of their journey. She notes that because the number of guards escorting them to the imperial palace is so vast, the sheer size of the entourage will make their arrival a lengthy affair. Penelope tilts her head, her large blue eyes filled with innocent curiosity. She asks what exactly the Empire Palace is, prompting Anne to describe it with reverence. It is the place where the Emperor resides, the heart of power from which he governs the entire empire. To help Penelope understand the gravity of their destination, Anne visualizes the social standing of the realm. She explains that the only person holding a rank higher than Penelope in this empire is the Emperor himself. Penelope's mind immediately goes to the one person she admires most, questioning if this status is truly high even when compared to Kieran. A small pout forms on Penelope's lips as she stubbornly insists that Kieran is the cooler of the two, regardless of rank. Anne can't help but chuckle at the girl's blatant favoritism. She teases the one she calls Miss Mermaid, asking if she truly likes him that much. Penelope's face flushes a deep pink, matching her hair as she shyly nods. With a soft, earnest tone, she confesses her love for him. Anne watches her with a warm smile, but her thoughts drift to the complexities of their bond. She wonders if Penelope's feelings remain unchanged even when Kieran's actions cause her trouble. Anne recalls a moment of tension, visualizing Kieran carrying the small girl in his arms. She mentions the incident with the ankle band, noting that Penelope almost faced serious consequences because of it. As the memory settles, Penelope looks down at the delicate silver band encircling her ankle, a quiet realization escaping her lips as she reflects on the weight of her choices. Penelope sits in a state of quiet contemplation, her long pink hair cascading over her shoulders as she stares blankly into the distance. Anne leans over her with a look of genuine concern, her hand resting near Penelope's shoulder as she tries to pierce through the heavy silence. Penelope dismisses the worry, whispering that it doesn't matter, but Anne isn't convinced, softly asking if she is truly okay. A sudden pause freezes Penelope in place, her heart skipping a beat as she feels a sharp internal jolt of realization. Her hand reaches down, fingers trembling as they brush against the delicate lace of her dress, her thoughts racing. No, she tells herself, the desire burning deep within. She wants a baby. She questions if her entire motivation is centered solely on the prospect of a child. The memory of Kieran floods her mind, a vision of him leaning over her in a moment of intense intimacy, his presence overwhelming her senses. She admits to herself that she desperately wants to stay here, but wonders if it is truly because of that one thing. Her eyes well up with unshaded tears, reflecting a mix of hope and sorrow. Even so, the yearning doesn't fade. She wants to confirm once and for all that Kieran could be her true serenade, the one person who truly resonates with her soul. In her mind's eye, she sees them locked in a passionate embrace, a kiss that feels like the collision of two worlds. The thought crystallizes she wants Kieran's baby specifically, not just any child. As they share another intimate moment in her memory, the truth finally becomes clear. It is as if what she truly wants is Kieran himself, and the baby is merely an extension of that love. Back in the present, Anne breaks her trance, calling her Miss Mermaid with a soft but piercing gaze. She asks a question that stops Penelope's heart. Does she love His Highness? Penelope's eye widens, the word love, echoing in her mind like a foreign melody she is only just beginning to recognize. Amidst the shock, a lingering memory of what her big brother once told her begins to resurface, leaving her at the dawn of a terrifyingly beautiful realization. The screen is submerged in the ink, black depths of a haunting memory, where ethereal blue bubbles float past the ghostly silhouette of a mermaid and a human drifting apart. A voice echoes through the cold void, crying out that it simply can't be, for humans and mermaids are never meant to be together forever. The warning is absolute and unyielding. There is only one chance to escape the impending tragedy. The unseen speaker commands that when the time comes, one must leave the serenade, ending with a chilling decree to never love a serenade. Transitioning to the present, Penelope clutches her head in frustration, her vibrant pink hair spilling over her shoulders as she hunches over in a dimly lit room. The weight of the cryptic warnings presses down on her soul, and she whispers in exhaustion that she simply does not know what to do anymore. Seeing her mistress's distress, Anne reaches out with a steadying hand, her face filled with a gentle, supportive warmth. She offers words of comfort, calling her Miss Mermaid and promising that regardless of the choices made, she will continue to remain faithfully by Nona's side. Outside, the sun shines brilliantly over a magnificent, sprawling estate surrounded by lush gardens and horse-drawn carriages, yet a lingering question hangs in the air about the difficult choices the young miss faces. As night descends upon the grounds, the atmosphere shifts to one of cold, military precision near a flickering campfire. A blonde-knight, Sir Valerius, approaches the stoic figure of Kieran and bows respectfully, addressing him as Your Honor. He reports that, according to his strict instructions, all preparations have been successfully completed. Kieran turns his sharp, calculating gaze toward the knight, his voice low and focused as he inquires about the specific number of troops stationed in front of the second-floor bedroom. When Valerius confirms that he has placed 5 men on guard, Kieran's expression hardens with an intensity that brooks no argument. With a final, stern command, he orders the knight to add 2 more, ensuring the security of the estate is impenetrable. Kieran gazes into the distance with a grim, focused intensity, acknowledging the weight of the unfolding situation. He confirms that he understands the gravity of the threat, asking his companion if something is indeed about to happen, noting that the tension in the air hasn't gone unnoticed by either of them. Standing together beneath the silhouettes of the mountains, they observe the jagged horizon. Kieran remarks that the mountain peaks are no place for travelers, and since the hunting season has long since passed, any activity there is deeply suspicious. Traces found along the mountain tracks confirm his fears. They are being watched, and the enemy is still lurking nearby. Sir Valerius nods solemnly, the blonde knight fully grasping the tactical reality. He suggests they turn off the lights and feign sleep to lure their adversaries into a trap. Kieran agrees with a cold, decisive command, telling his men to prepare for the inevitable attack. As a campfire crackles nearby, sending sparks into the night air, Kieran looks back at the grand estate. He issues a stern warning to his troops, demanding that the guards stationed around the bedroom be particularly vigilant, knowing the stakes are highest there. Inside the quiet of the mansion, Penelope gently wakes Anne, who stirs with a groggy mumble. Anne looks up, confused by the sudden awakening, and asks what has happened. Penelope, her pink hair illuminated by the soft light, explains that she heard a strange, unsettling sound that suggests something is going wrong outside. A look of realization and dread washes over Anne as she sits up, her eyes wide as she considers the terrifying possibility of what that sound might mean. The stillness of the night is violently shattered as a heavy crash rings out against the manor's ornate glass doors, sending a chill through the air. In the courtyard below, chaos instantly ignites, blades clash and sparks fly as the estate guards scramble to meet the sudden threat. Cries of "There's an intruder!" and "Attack them all!" erupt through the darkness, signaling the start of a desperate struggle against the hooded figures lurking in the shadows. From the safety of an upper balcony, Anne watches the violence unfold with wide-eyed terror, gasping that it looks like an attack. Beside her, Penelope's heart sinks as she watches the carnage, her fear quickly turning into a reckless impulse to help. She bolts toward the edge of the terrace, ignoring Anne's panicked cry of Miss Mermaid. As she screams Kieran's name into the night. Down in the thick of the fray, Kieran is locked in a brutal exchange of steel. his teeth bared in a snarl of effort as he blocks a lethal lunge from a cloaked assassin. High above, Penelope leans dangerously over the railing, her voice cracking with desperation as she shouts that Kieran is in danger. Anne desperately tries to pull her back, pleading for her to get inside, but Penelope is paralyzed by the sight of the man she cares for fighting for his life. A moment of heavy silence fills the air as Penelope realizes the gravity of the situation, her blue eyes reflecting the flickering orange glow of the fires below. She knows that if this continues, Kieran will be hurt, and she resolves that she must do something to intervene. With her mind made up, she turns away from the window, her pink hair whipping behind her as she moves to act. Below, Kieran stands firm amidst the smoke and flames, his sword pointed at a cornered foe as he demands to know who sent them. A cold smirk dances on Kieran's lips as he faces his unseen pursuers, the terrace light catching the sharp glint in his eyes. He knows the games of shadow and steel all too well, dismissing the need for interrogation with a chilling confidence. There's no use in asking, he muses, his voice low and steady. Whoever it is, he'll find out soon enough. Emerging from the darkness, a cloaked assassin draws a pair of wicked daggers, his voice a harsh rasp filled with murderous intent. He commands Kieran to obey the orders and just give up his life, as if death were a simple bureaucratic requirement. The air crackles with sudden violence as the killer lunges, his silhouette a jagged blade against the night. He screams his allegiance with a fanatic's fervor, claiming that his strike is what the son of the Empire wants. Kieran's hand goes to his hilt, preparing for a lethal dance. High above the fray, a heavy ceramic vase hurtles through the air, caught in a desperate arc of intervention. It smashes with a deafening crack directly against the assassin's skull just as he closes the distance. The man staggers, a pained grunt escaping his lips as his momentum is shattered. Seizing the split-second opening, Kieran's blade clears its scabbard in a flash of silver. With a single, fluid arc of steel, he carves through the assassin's chest, leaving a trail of crimson spray across the marble. The threat is neutralized, but Kieran's focus immediately shifts. Breathless and eyes wide with disbelief, Kieran looks up toward the stone railing of the balcony. He calls out for Maluzin, her name tasting of surprise and concern as he realizes who had intervened. Perched above the chaos, Maluzin stands trembling, her pink hair disheveled as she grips the railing, the empty space where the vase once sat marking her frantic act of defense. Her face is pale with terror as the reality of the violence sinks in. A blur of movement catches Maluzin off guard as a sharp blade whistles through the air, aimed directly for her. Anne reacts with instinct, throwing herself forward to pull the girl back into the safety of the shadows. A sharp scream rings out as they tumble away from the edge. The commotion on the balcony does not go unnoticed. Another hooded figure points upward, his voice cutting through the din of battle with a new directive. He bellows that there are people up there too, ordering his comrades to capture them first as the scope of the hunt expands. The heavy silence of the royal corridor is shattered with a violent crash as hooded intruders burst through the doors. Penelope, her long pink hair flowing behind her, turns in shock while her maid, Anne, recoils in terror. The room, once a sanctuary, is suddenly a battleground. Anne clings desperately to Penelope's arm, her face wet with tears of pure fright. She whimpers out a plea for the nightmare to stop, crying out to her lady, "No, Miss Mermaid." Penelope stares ahead, her expression a mix of disbelief and mounting panic as the threat looms closer. One of the hooded assassins lunges forward with a murderous glint in his eyes, his voice a venomous snarl. "How dare you?" he bellows, raising a sharp dagger to strike a killing blow. The cold steel catches the light, a deadly omen of the violence to come. Penelope's breath hitches, a soft ah escaping her lips as she watches the scene unfold in slow motion. Her eyes widen with a paralyzing dread, reflecting the gruesome reality of the situation. A sudden, visceral spray of crimson paints the walls as the tide of battle shifts in a heartbeat. Choked gasps and desperate cries for help ring out through the halls as the sounds of the intruder's aggression is met with a swift, lethal response that leaves no room for mercy. The chaos subsides into a grim silence, broken only by the sound of bodies hitting the floor. Two of the hooded assailants now lie motionless in expanding pools of their own blood, their mission ended by a superior blade. Kieran stands amidst the devastation, his silhouette framed by the dimly lit hallway. He leans on his sword, his chest heaving with ragged breath. Blood splatters his face and clothes. and the heavy drip of his weapon against the stone floor marks the end of the struggle. Penelope stares at the blood-soaked man before her, her voice barely a whisper as she breathes his name, Kieran. The relief of being saved is tempered by the raw, brutal sight of her protector. Kieran's gaze is haunting, his eyes glowing with a lingering battle frenzy. A streak of blood runs down his face like a macabre scar, yet he stands firm. He is a terrifying savior, a man who has waded through death to ensure her safety. Cool night air clings to the forest floor as a group of knights stands in the dim glow of lanterns, surveying the grim results of a bloody encounter. They move with a quiet efficiency, their capes catching the pale moonlight as they secure the area where bodies lay scattered in the dirt. Inside the manor, far from the physical carnage, Penelope stands in the center of a cavernous, dimly lit hall. The silence of the room is heavy, pressed against the walls of the grand architecture as she stares toward the distant, closed doors. Suddenly, Penelope flinches as a sharp sound cuts through the silence and her eyes widen in shock. A single exclamation marks her sudden realization that the doors are opening. As the heavy wood swings wide, Kieran stumbles into the light, his appearance a nightmare of torn fabric and fresh bloodstains. He looks as though he has walked straight through hell, his face streaked with grime and his dark hair messy. Penelope's voice cracks as she calls out his name, her panic immediate and visceral. Kieran doesn't stop, his heavy footsteps echoing with a dull thud as he continues past her into the hall. Penelope follows him, her hands clenched in front of her as she pours out her heart. She tells him she was worried, her words sharp with the frustration of someone who has been waiting in agony. She accuses him of being deaf to her pleas and reckless to the point of not knowing fear, asking him point blank if her words mean absolutely nothing to him. Her words are cut short as Kieran snaps. In a sudden blur of motion, he turns and seizes her by the shoulders, his grip tight and desperate. The intensity of his gaze is terrifying as he stares down into her eyes, his face inches from hers. He demands to know if she has any idea what she's done, his voice shaking with a raw, jagged emotion. The anger in his eyes quickly reveals itself as pure, unadulterated terror as he screams that she almost died right in front of him. The world seems to stand still for Penelope. She is frozen, her breath hitching as she looks up into Kieran's pained expression. The shock of his outburst leaves her speechless, her wide eyes searching his for the calm composure he usually holds, finding only the shattered remains of his restraint. A heavy silence falls between them, the only sound the ragged breathing of a man who nearly lost everything. Finally, Kieran pulls away, his gaze dropping as the adrenaline leaves him cold and hollow. He mutters a quiet request to be excused, leaving Penelope alone with the devastating weight of his fear. In a void of pure white, Anne's internal monologue echoes with a heavy, haunting weight. She confesses that the paralyzing fear of seeing Kieran wounded drove her to take desperate actions she never thought herself capable of. Back in the physical world, Kieran pulls her close, his dark form shielding her against the backdrop of the palace. Despite the fresh, dark blood soaking into his shoulder, he speaks with a calm that borders on chilling, assuring her that there is nothing to worry about. He reveals the hand behind the strike. It was the Emperor who dispatched the assassin. Anne's voice is a mere whisper of shock as she repeats the word Emperor, her mind racing to bridge the gap between loyalty and this betrayal. She asks why, her voice trembling with a need for logic in a world of cruelty, but Kieran only offers a faint, cynical smile. He looks away, his gaze distant as he suggests the Emperor might simply be testing his limits, seeing how much he can endure before he breaks. The air seems to thicken with the scent of ash and smoke as Kieran describes himself as nothing more than a dog being trained. He speaks of a loyalty forged through suffering, where he is expected to remain obedient even when pushed to the brink of death. A vision of the Emperor, a man named Alaric with golden hair and a cold, regal bearing, appears amidst a sea of roaring flames and charred remains, embodying the ruthless power that governs their lives. Kieran turns back to Anne, noticing the shadow of grief crossing her face, and asks why she looks so distressed. He dismisses her sympathy with a hollow tone, stating there is no need for pity, because this state of perpetual violence is his only reality. Anne stares at him, her heart sinking as she realizes that while he has accepted his role as a weapon, to her, he looks like a man losing his soul. Kieran stands in the hushed stillness of the room, his face and attire stained with the grim remnants of battle, As Melusine gazes at him, she sees past his stoic mask to a profound vulnerability, sensing that he looks very sad. Kieran turns away, his back a rigid barrier as he tries to dismiss her concern, claiming that the feeling she perceives is merely an illusion. Melusine recalls how Kieran has made similar dismissals in the past, but she is no longer willing to be deterred by his cold facade. She reaches out, her pale, clean fingers gently intertwining with his blood-stained hand. To her, the warmth and weight of his touch are undeniable, proving that this moment is not an illusion. Her heart swells with the realization that Kieran is very special to her. They stand facing each other, a stark contrast of bloodied armor and soft silk, as she clings to his hands with a silent, desperate strength. Her thoughts are a protective vow, a clear declaration that she does not want Kieran to feel lonely or sad ever again. With a tender, trembling motion, Melusine raises her hand to his cheek, indifferent to the blood that now marks her own skin. Her expression is one of deep, aching empathy as she tells herself she doesn't want Kieran to be hurt again. She leans in, pressing her face against his palm in a gesture of absolute devotion and comfort. Kieran's eyes widen in quiet shock as he breathes out her name, calling her Mel. She looks up at him, her gaze clear and unwavering, and tells him she doesn't feel pity. Meeting his eyes with a fierce sincerity, she repeats that she does not pity him, closing the distance between them with a truth that shatters his isolation. Blood streaks Kieran's face, his amber eyes softening as the adrenaline of battle fades into a quiet exhaustion. He breathes out a soft, affirmative yes, as if finally acknowledging a hard-won peace. Pulling Melusine into a firm, protective embrace, he lets her pink hair spill over his blood-stained sleeve, the world around them blurring into a shimmering, watery light. Sensing her trembling, he reassures her with a gentle finality, telling her that it is enough. The scene shifts to the sprawling architectural marvel of the Imperial Palace, where towering white spires pierce the clear blue sky. Melusine gazes at the majestic structure with wide-eyed wonder, her voice hushed as she asks Kieran if this is truly the center of the empire. She wanders through the manicured grounds, her excitement bubbling over as she exclaims that there are so many flowers. She notes with a mix of awe and melancholy that the place is beautiful and far larger than Triton. Wrapped in a heavy traveling cloak, Melusine looks up at Kieran with a playful, admiring glint in her eyes. She ponders aloud if Kieran is the strongest of them all, catching him completely off guard as he responds with a baffled what. He stares down at her, a silent sigh in his expression as he wonders exactly what kind of thoughts are racing through her head. Their moment of levity is cut short by the rhythmic click of boots on stone. A knight named Ian approaches, bowing with practiced discipline as he addresses Kieran as Your Honor. He reveals that he has been waiting for their arrival, carrying a direct order to bring them in immediately. Melusine flinches, shrinking behind Kieran's sturdy frame as the weight of the palace's authority settles over them. Kieran's posture stiffens, his voice level as he asks if the summons is for right now. Recognizing the knight, Kieran simply says Ein, to which the man respectfully replies that he will take care of the rest. Ian moves with a sense of purpose, his hand guiding Anne forward as they navigate the palace grounds. With a gentle yet firm insistence, he urges her to keep pace, beckoning for her to come on. Anne, her eyes wide with a mix of awe and apprehension under her hood, can only manage a soft gasp as she tries to process the grandeur surrounding them. Kieran's tall, imposing figure retreats down the center of a majestic, light-filled hall, his white cloak sweeping against the polished marble. From somewhere in the distance, a voice echoes his name, hanging in the air with a tone of quiet desperation that he chooses not to answer. Tucked away in a corner of the opulent corridor, a gilded frame sits partially obscured by the broad leaves of a verdant plant. The oil painting depicts a scene of royal gravity, capturing a moment of past glory that feels frozen and distant from the current silence of the hall. Standing alone in the hallway, Kieran halts his progress to gaze upon the portrait. The surrounding architectural details, the intricate molding and the soft glow of the lamps, frame his solitary form as he confronts the history staring back at him from the canvas. The silence is broken by the arrival of a panicked attendant, Master Silas, who approaches Kieran with a look of extreme anxiety. He startles as he realizes the gravity of Kieran's presence, his eyes wide as he prepares to deliver news he clearly finds difficult. Bowing low in a gesture of profound apology, Silas addresses Kieran with nervous deference. He explains that his honor must forgive the delay, as the Supreme remains confined to his bed, still deep in sleep, while the rest of the world begins its daily labor. Silas continues to fret over the mounting responsibilities, his voice trembling as he mentions the significant amount of work that awaits. Kieran remains unfazed, his profile sharp and steady as he calmly instructs the attendant not to worry, stating his intention to wait for as long as necessary. Silas expresses his gratitude with a relieved nod, acknowledging Kieran's status with a respectful address to His Highness. A heavy stillness descends once more as Kieran stands before the painting, his mind clearly elsewhere. He stares into the eyes of the painted figures, his expression a mask of stoic resolve that hides a deeper, more turbulent internal conflict. The portrait reveals Emperor Alaric in all his regal might, his bearded face etched with a stern, unyielding authority. Beside him stands a young boy with golden hair, the Emperor's hand resting on the child's shoulder in a gesture that feels as much like a claim as it does a protective touch. The weight of the moment culminates in a single, heavy word from Kieran as he looks upon the image of the Emperor. "Uncle," he murmurs, the word laden with the complex history of their bloodline and the heavy expectations of the throne. A soft, sepia-toned memory flickers to life, capturing a moment of pure, childhood innocence. A young, blond boy leaps into his uncle's arms, his face lit with a radiant smile that transcends the years. Kieran looks down at the child with a gentle, indulgent expression, the bond between them palpable. The boy's voice rings out with unwavering conviction, declaring that his uncle is the coolest person in the entire world and that he dreams of the day he can be just like him. Kieran's golden eyes widen slightly, a subtle wave of emotion washing over his features. The weight of the boy's admiration hits him, a bittersweet mixture of pride and the heavy responsibility of being a hero in a child's eyes. The promise of the past echoes through the silence. The young boy insists that until he grows up, Kieran must never leave his side, a request that carries the weight of a sacred vow between family. The warmth of the recollection is violently torn away, replaced by a cold, suffocating darkness. A massive, imposing figure cloaked in blood, red fabric towers over Kieran, his presence radiating a lethal intent. Kieran stares up, his face pale and eyes wide with a dawning, horrific realization. Crimson droplets spray across Kieran's pale shirt, marking the end of peace and the beginning of a nightmare. He gasps, his body jolting back as the reality of the betrayal or the sudden assault sinks in, the dark silhouette ahead offering no mercy. Emerging from the carnage with a chillingly casual air, a man with long, golden hair grips a bottle, a jagged, manic grin stretching across his face. He taunts Kieran, his voice dripping with a cruel, mocking joy as he invites him to look at who has finally arrived. The setting transforms into the cold, intimidating grandeur of the imperial throne room. High above on the marble dais, Emperor Alaric stands draped in his royal red cloak, his posture radiating absolute power. Below him, Kieran looks small against the vastness of the hall, yet his spirit remains unbroken. Alaric's voice drips with sarcasm as he greets his beloved uncle from his high vantage point. Kieran stands tall, his eyes locking onto the Emperor's with a stoic, unyielding gaze. The gap between them is no longer just physical, it is a chasm of years and spilled blood. He speaks with a voice like shifting stone, acknowledging that it has been a long time since they last saw one another. He addresses the man before him with the formal respect demanded by his station, calling him His Highness, the Emperor. Alaric lets out a sharp, derisive laugh, his face contorting into a smirk that fails to reach his eyes. There is a predatory hunger in his gaze, a sign of the madness or resentment that has festered since his childhood. The Emperor strides forward, his footsteps echoing against the polished floor with an arrogant rhythm. He stops inches from Kieran, invading his personal space with a mocking familiarity. Placing a hand firmly against Kieran's chest, he remarks that they couldn't get between you before chiding him for his rigid, formal demeanor, telling his uncle that he is simply far too stiff. Emperor Alaric looms over the scene with a sharp, predatory glint in his eyes, a mocking grin stretching across his face. His long golden hair spills over his shoulders as he breaks the silence with a contemplative drawl, starting with a simple, "Well." His gaze is piercing, weighing the situation with a cold intensity as he leans in closer. With a tone that suggests both suspicion and a veiled threat, he observes that all this time, his target has remained remarkably safe and without a single wound.
And that's it for today's recap, folks. If you enjoyed the story and want to see the next part, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. I put a lot of effort into these videos, so your support means a lot. Now, here's the deal. If you want me to drop part 2, type the word spider in the comments below. That way I'll know who's been watching till the end and who's part of the real crew! Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next recap. Until then, stay awesome, stay curious, and keep diving into the world of manhwa.